Good evening. My name is Joy Fulkerson, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to tonight's candidate forum for the Johnson City Schools Board of Education. On behalf of the Johnson City Press, the League of Women Voters, and ETSU Votes, we are excited to be here to help share with the public information about our candidates this evening. The League of Women Voters of Northeast Tennessee works hard to empower voters and defend democracy. Candidate forums like tonight is one of the activities in which we coordinate. We look forward to tonight's conversation and are excited to bring this to our viewers. At this point, I'd like to introduce our moderator for the evening, Ms. Dana York.
Thank you, Joy, and good evening, candidates. We appreciate your willingness to participate in our forum for candidates that are running for the positions of the Board of Education, Johnson City Schools. I am Dana York, and I am a member of the East Tennessee League of Women Voters, and I will be your moderator. The forum format is as follows. Each candidate will be allowed a 2-minute opening statement and a 1-minute closing statement. Their order of participation was predetermined by drawing. After the first speaker, the order of answers will rotate with each round of questions. Each candidate's response to the question is limited to 1.5 minutes or 90 seconds. The league timekeeper sitting in front of you will indicate when it is 30 seconds with a yellow square and when time is up with a red square. You will be required to stop when the red square comes up. Candidates, you were provided 2 questions in advance. You've not seen the remaining questions that were determined by representatives from the partnering organizations and edited to ensure they are non-biased, respectful, and relevant to the races for which you are participating. No questions will be posed from the audience. Candidates, this is a forum where we want to provide voters with your views on the issues presented. There'll be no cross-questioning or additional responses in this debate. Public forums such as this work best if a high level of civility and decorum are observed. Audience members have agreed not to refrain from responding to the candidates until we come to the end of the forum. So now we will go to our opening statements. If you'll please introduce yourself and then give your opening statement, and we'll start with Jonathan Kinnick.
Hello, my name is Jonathan Kinnick. Thank you to the Johnson City Press, the League of Women Voters, and ETSU Votes for hosting this forum. I came down to Milligan College in 1984. I graduated with a BS degree in computer science and math. I stayed here and raised my family here with my kids going through Johnson City school system for K through 12. My son graduated in 2012 and my daughter graduated in 2015. I'm currently on the school board, and I had the desire to be on the school board for a long time before that, but I lost my wife to breast cancer when my kids were 4 and 7, so my focus was on getting my kids through school, which I was very involved with. So besides having the parent perspective of getting 2 kids all the way through the school system, I believe my business skills also add important perspective and experience. I develop software and do computer consulting for a living. I believe these analytical skills are an immense benefit to the school board and the school system. I analyze systems and I find and implement solutions. So besides the critical thinking that helps in all areas, my background and experience with technology has also helped with technology decisions. I've often helped explain to both our superintendent and our board in layman's terms the pros and cons of technology options and decisions. Our teacher tech program is amazing. We are always striving for improvements, especially during the pandemic, on all aspects of our technology, hardware, software, and most importantly, training the teachers and the staff on using it in the best way. A little bit more about myself. I've owned my own business, Kinnick Consulting, for 27 years. I've also owned Norris Bicycles for almost 6 years. I bicycle a lot, riding, racing, the whole works, typically ride about 200 miles a week. I used to tell my kids I did it to keep my sanity from having them. And for those of you that are here, that also explains the crutches. When I was on a ride about 4 weeks ago, a dog took my front wheel out, broke my femur in 5 places, hence the shorts and lack of a jacket, because those don't work well with a broken leg or crutches, so apologies on that. Heavily involved in my church also, been an elder for a number of years, led the budget team for over 20 years. I'm on the Johnson City Parks and Rec Advisory Board, served as both chair and vice chair. I've been on the school board since 2016, and for the 4 years before that, I attended most of the school board meetings, so I was able to hit the ground running in 16. We're in the middle of our plan to transition to 2 middle schools, and I've got a lot of knowledge and experience with that, so I would appreciate your vote to continue that and see that through. Again, Jonathan Kinnick, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Linville?
Thanks. I'd like to thank the Johnson City Press League of Women Voters and ETSU Votes for having us here this evening. It's a great evening for us to be able to share our views and perspectives. My name's David Linville, and I'm passionate about education. I made a career out of it. I'm a graduate of the Quillen College of Medicine. I also hold a doctorate in education from ETSU and serve as a professor in the College of Medicine here. I also serve in numerous leadership positions at the university and had the privilege of serving as the university's first board secretary. So I have background in terms of how a public board serves an educational institution. I also had the privilege of serving as the leader of a work group this past spring that looked at how the university needed to resume its operations in light of the pandemic after we had to abruptly switch to remote instruction in March. So I understand a lot about the challenges we face during a pandemic in education. Probably most importantly, though, is that I have a 10th grader and an 8th grader in the Johnson City school system. I also have a 25-year-old who has severe developmental and intellectual disabilities who spent his entire educational career in the Johnson City schools from age 3 until he graduated at age 22. So I have a unique perspective and a unique skill set that I think brings quite a bit to a candidate and hopefully as a member of the Board of Education. I'm passionate about what I do. I want to see a consistent, persistent drive to serve others in the community, and I think this is the best way to do it. I'm looking forward to hearing about the other candidates tonight, and I appreciate the opportunity to be able to be with you this evening. Thanks.
Ginger Carter?
I would like to echo what Jonathan and David have said. Thank you for having this forum for us. My name's Ginger Carter. I'm an OBGYN physician currently at ETSU Health that's running for school board. I'm a proud graduate, just as David, from the Quillen College of Medicine, class of 2000, and I spent the first 13 years in private practice where I opened up my own medical practice in Knoxville, Tennessee, prior to moving back to the Tri-Cities after getting married in 2008. Education has always been a very important part of my life, not only in my current job, where I'm back at ETSU Health for the past 3 years, not only seeing my private patients, but teaching medical students and residents, but I'm also a mother to a sweet 4th grader named Ava at Town Acres Elementary. So I'd like to bring my business leadership and teaching background to the Johnson City Board of Education to continue to make our school system the best in Tennessee. I am also a huge fan of the 2 middle school concept, and I want to see this come to fruition. I think this will help double the opportunities for our middle school students, and it'll also help make that transition for our elementary age children a little bit easier. I would also like to improve safety measures at our school and on those campuses, both virtual as well as physical. I want to ensure that all processes, both in time and in budgets, are ran as efficiently as possible. So I look forward to the opportunity to hopefully serve on the Board of Education in Johnson City. Thank you.
Matt Wiljum?
Good afternoon. My name is Matt Wiljum, and it's appropriate that I am here on this campus today where much of my educational foundation was laid, particularly not only in the classroom but also on the athletic field. I was quarterback for ETSU and also proudly quarterback for Science Hill. And what I learned in that scenario was when the game's on the line, you want the ball in your hand. And I haven't asked this question, but I would say that from all the candidates here, the question that we're probably most asked is, why are we running for school board now in the midst of all of this? Why would you want to do that? And my answer to that is, that's precisely why I wanted to run. It's the stakes are high. And, you know, I think we've got one of the best school systems in the state. I think our board has been fantastic. I think our superintendent is the best in the state, I think unapologetically, but he can't do it alone. And, when you look at what makes a good board member, not everybody needs to have a financial background, but somebody does. When you look at the school budget is more than half of the city budget, somebody needs to have a financial background. And to that end, I've got 15 years of senior financial experience serving as a CFO. Critical decision-making skills, understanding the concepts of what makes this work. That's what's important. Community involvement. I've been involved in the community at all levels, whether it's youth or whether it's in ETSU or the ballot or any number of areas. Being involved in the community is important, but kids first is my approach. Served a number of youth group capacities. I think being a product of the system is important. I don't think everyone needs to be a product of the system, but someone does. And to that end, I'm a proud graduate of Science Hill and also Liberty Bell. And lastly, I'll say this, is kids in the system. Not everyone needs to have kids in the system, but I've got 6. So to say that I've got a vested interest in the success of our program is an understatement. Thank you to the league.
Thank you, Matt. Paula, Treese?
Hi, my name is Paula Treese, and I'm currently a board member. I was elected in 2018 to fill out the end of a 2-year unexpired term. I'd like to thank the Johnson City Press, the League of Women Voters, also ETSU Votes for having us here tonight. I have 3 children who've gone through the system, 2 who are in college, and my last one is a junior. They've gone all the way through Science Hill. I do believe it is one of the best schools in our state and definitely in our area. When my kids were young, I started working with PTA in the schools because I thought I want to make our schools better. And through that, I learned how to advocate at all levels. I've advocated through that time at the city level, at the state level, and also at the national level. So I know how to talk to all those people who are making those decisions at each of those levels. And I basically want all kids to get the best education that they can have. It's very important because the education of our children is our future. And I look in here with some of our ETSU people who are here, who I've watched grow up through our city schools, and it's amazing what I've seen done from just taking an interest in our kids. Through the time that I've been on the board, even though it's been short, we've worked on our Liberty Bell new gym and cafeteria, which opened yesterday. We're really excited that that's going. And again, the 2 middle school system that Ginger talked about, that's a very important thing because it does allow for more opportunities for all of our kids. Again, I just think we need to spend a lot of time thinking about our education of our kids and getting them the best education that we can. And our city school systems has always prided itself on that. And I want to help us move into the future and keep that standard high.
Thank you. Kenneth Herb Greenlee?
I'm Kenneth Herb Greenlee, and I want to thank the Johnson City Press, the League of Women Voters, and the ETSU for having this forum today. And I'm a guy that wears a lot of hats. I drive a school bus. I officiate different sports, football, basketball, baseball, softball, and plus I'm a recreation center supervisor. Been there 34 years, working from a lot of different aspects of it. And I see a lot of people that come through our center. We do currently have an after-school program where today the kids got their grade cards and they was A and B students. And that was a plus for our program for 20 kids during this pandemic coming through there and making something happen. That is a plus for us. But anyway, I've been working with kids all my life, all my adult life, and working with them on different aspects, taking them on field trips, doing different things with them, working with them. But I see kids from all aspects of it getting involved. But sometimes we deal with a lot of kids that they're not in the mainstream of the school system, and they have a hard time. A lot of that due to the fact that they're on probation or something like that happens to them, and they come to us and we work them and try to make them better citizens in the city of Johnson City. I've been here a long time and I've seen a lot of things happen that come through. I worked as a school security guard in the Johnson City school system. I drove the buses, I did a lot of things in the school system. Try to help it make a better difference. And that's why I'm running for school board. Thank you.
Beth Simpson?
Glasses and masks don't always mix well. Good evening. I thank you all for being here this evening. I especially thank the 3 ETSU students that are sitting over here with their smiling, masked faces on. My name is Beth Simpson, and I too want to thank the Johnson City Press and the ETSU Votes and the League of Women Voters for sponsoring this event. As parents and as community members, we not only want our children to be well educated, but as voters, we want to be well educated. We want to know what the issues are that are facing our community and what the candidates think about those issues. So thank you all for helping us be informed voters. Thank you for making this possible. I believe that good public schools are key for a healthy community, and for that matter, a healthy country. Education is really the glue that holds our democracy together. I have reaped the benefits of the excellent Johnson City school system, and I am running for school board to continue that good work. I'm the proud mother of 5. I have 2 students currently in the Johnson City schools, one in 5th grade and one a junior. And I have 3 students who are Science Hill High School graduates, 2 who are proud college graduates, and 1 who's a junior. I've served as a room mom, a sports booster president, various PTA positions at 4 different schools, a classroom helper, and I've loved occasionally substitute teaching. I'm a former English teacher, and I am passionate about reading and literacy. Reading is really the building block to all education. I am motivated by a desire to use these experiences to serve our community, to provide level-headed leadership, and to help the Johnson City Schools expand its mission to enable all students to achieve excellence. I would ask that you consider voting for me for school board.
Thank you, candidates. We will now start our questions. The first question is, what are the primary unmet needs in Johnson City Schools, and how would you address them? And we will start this question with Mr. Linville.
Thank you, Ms. York. You know, the school board's role is to ensure the system has necessary resources to be able to fulfill its mission. And our mission is to enable all students to achieve excellence in learning, social responsibility, and self-worth. And I think the challenge for us right now is dealing with this pandemic. What I think we're seeing is a challenge for all of us in terms of students, in terms of our teachers, in terms of our families, as we move through this. And we're not near a post-pandemic recovery as yet. And so how do we provide for those needs that may be unmet at this point? I think we're seeing a widening of performance gaps between our students. We have a set of students who are doing very well, who tend to excel and exceed whether they're in remote learning or in-person learning. Then we've got students that are struggling. And I think there's a lot that has to go into addressing those gaps. I think teachers are having to work very hard. Online education is difficult. I know this, even as an educator myself. It's challenging to teach at home and be with your children. And so I think for us, the primary needs at this point that need meeting are to continue to do our best to address those challenges that we face with the pandemic. It is not easy, but I think that is the board's role. And I think that it's important that we keep that center as we move forward with our board operations. Thank you.
Ms. Carter?
My perspective is that we need to do more to ensure the safety of students and teachers. And this goes back for me pre-pandemic. There are too many random people on school campuses during school hours. And this just poses an unnecessary risk to our students and teachers. At any time, you can go on Science Hill campus and see people by car and by foot, and they cannot be identified. And I just don't think that is safe or an environment that I want our teachers and my child to be in. So I would definitely like to work on not allowing our school campuses to be used as a public park while school is in session. As far as virtual safety, I think that is extremely important. I think we do a really good job, but with technology and our kids getting good at technology all the time, that process has to be continually evaluated. And so keeping our kids safe both in a physical sense and a virtual sense is very important to me. Thank you.
Mr. Wiljo?
I agree with both of the assessments of candidates. I think both of those make sense, and I would support those. As I look at things, I want to think about things differently and maybe a little bit more long-term, not just the immediate needs right in front of us, but when, from a business perspective, we see our graduates, many of them will be the future employees of local businesses. And, I would like to see us to begin to think differently about that and how we can incorporate local business in our education system to the extent of internships, apprenticeships, further co-op opportunities, further mentorship opportunities, to have a young man or a young woman walk into these doctors' offices and see what that day looks like and really broaden horizons on what is possible. I think there's room for that. I'm the beneficiary of having mentors in my life, and I would love an opportunity to see how we could expand that from inside the system. I think when we think about things even longer than that, when I graduated from Science Hill in 1997, I was competing against people for local jobs from essentially my classmates. But when our children that are entering the school system today or entering in the workforce, they're not going to be competing only against Science Hill or Dobbins-Bennett. They're going to be competing against people from around the world. Technology is erasing geography and the geographic advantage that we have shared in the United States. And I'm a firm believer in this. If we wait for opportunity to prepare, it's too late. We need to begin now for the future.
Thank you, Matt. Ms. Treese?
The primary unmet needs, we need to follow, especially through this pandemic, all of our subgroups, which we always follow on a very close basis anyway, but we need to make sure that they're still growing in what they're doing. We need to follow our English language learners, our special education students. We need to look at the underprivileged, but we also need to look at those who will go on into our global economies, possibly moving out of our area, and allow them those opportunities, which some have been closed down somewhat because of this pandemic. We also need to watch our remote learners as well as our in-person learners to make sure that our standards are staying just as high on both areas, because we need to allow those remote learners to be remote, but we also need to make sure that they're getting the same education as those that are in a classroom with the teacher. One thing I want to say is this, the unmet needs. Our teachers and our staff has done an incredible job over the last 8 months hitting unmet needs that we never dreamed about hitting. And just a huge kudos to them and all the things that they have done to make our students still get the education that they deserve.
Mr. Greenlee?
Our primary unmet needs are, I think, in our school system are minorities and personnel, that we need teachers, administrators, and people that can identify with some of the kids that have needs in the school system. Plus, we had a diversity committee that met during the summer to identify some of those needs of what we have in the school system, and to upgrade that, to bring it to fruition where kids can identify with the teachers, the administrators, and get what they need in the community. So that's what I think we need in our school system.
Thank you. Ms. Simpson?
Johnson City Schools have been blessed with excellent leaders, excellent teachers, and a really supportive community. And I've benefited from that, and on the whole, we have an excellent system. But like all systems, it's not 100% perfect. There are always going to be unmet needs. Creating the opportunity for all students to achieve is an ever-evolving goal, but a very worthy goal. My focus is not what those unmet needs are, but how we lead a system that is always retooling and progressing to meet the changing needs of our students and our community. A school board needs to wisely guide the system into the future in order to meet those needs, both social and emotional, whether it's in person or online, creating opportunities for evaluation, applying research-based changes, and increasing avenues for communication from the community can ensure that opportunities are expanded and improved for all students.
Okay, and last, Mr. Kinnick.
Yes, our primary unmet need is capacity. That's one of the biggest drivers for switching to 2 middle schools to help with capacity. We're in the process of building on to 3 grade schools. That's with money we had through the PEP money, which is through sales tax to do that. But because Washington County has told us twice that 48% of the kids that happen to live in Johnson City, which is inside Washington County, believe it or not, don't matter, then we do not have the money to rebuild Town Acres, and we are going to have major capacity issues. We've already told the city leaders that not only do we need to rebuild Town Acres to have more room there, to put the 5th graders back and have room to grow, within 5 to 10 years, we're going to need an additional grade school if the rates keep going as they were as the pre-pandemic numbers. And without the money from the county to do that, that leaves our city leaders with choices of either raising property taxes or raising sales tax, because it doesn't look good getting money from the county. There's enough money, but with what they've offered the city, that still isn't enough to rebuild Town Acres. But if they would take what they offered the city and take what they're going to pay on the bonds for the Jonesboro school, which is definitely needed, and build it a little smaller, their own director said they've got 400 empty seats at Boones Creek. It's only 3 miles from Jonesboro. They moved 200 kids up there. They can build 8 or 10 less classrooms. They can build it for $26 million, give us $24 million. That's the appropriate breakdown of $50 million. It's a win-win for everybody, and everybody can have enough capacity, but not sure that's going to happen.
Okay. Our second question is, Johnson City school leaders have long criticized school funding mechanisms with the county as inequitable. What do you think of those mechanisms, and how do you think they should be addressed? And we will start this round with Ms. Carter.
Okay, I think that it is imperative for relationships between city leaders and county leaders to exist. I think if you ask any of those leaders, what do you want for the public school system? We're all going to say we want a great school system, we want quality education, we want our teachers paid well. And so, and I know there's been a lot of press about people not declaring parties and such like that in an effort to work together. But I think it is building those relationships, because I really truly believe we all have common goals. We want our kids to do well. We want to live in a safe community. We don't want high taxes. We want good cost of living. And so I think building relationships between city and county leaders at all levels is just imperative for us to get the things that we all truly want. And so I would think development of those relationships is key.
Mr. Wiljohn?
You know, I think when you start talking about inequality and things being inequitable, it comes to an idea of dividing the pie. The reality is we live in an area that we need to grow the pie. And I'm a firm believer that education is the greatest lever that we have to grow this area. When businesses look to come to this area, the first questions that families ask are, tell me how good the schools are. And you know, let me see the statistics. And so if we sit and squabble about, you know, this half is mine and this half is mine, what we're really missing is the bigger pictures. We've got to grow together. You know, when you look at the school system and the way that the funding is set, that's state law that as we look to bond programs, state law says that we should share those dollars, right? That's unquestioned. So the question then becomes, how do we grow the pie? And so if we've got people in the community saying those Johnson City school system is not our problem, the reality is it's all of Washington County's problem, not just Johnson City, it's the entire county's problem. So I think relationships matter, absolutely, but I think it's also a broad reach to say, we gotta grow the pie, and that means making everybody's education system better.
Ms. Treese?
There are currently about 16,000 students in Washington County and Johnson City altogether, and it is important that each of them get the opportunity to have great educations. But we also need to look at the growing, as Jonathan said, the growing students base that we have. We're already behind on Town Acres. We need a new Town Acres. The funding for that just in Johnson City will come in about 2026 or 2028. And that's 10 years from, 8 to 10 years from now, 10 years by the time you build that school. When we see that we pay taxes as Johnson City taxpayers that are going to fund the well-needed Jonesboro school, but then they're not coming back to us, it does get kind of upsetting that we are being kind of cheated out of the money that comes from our Johnson City taxpayers. We all need good school systems, but we also need the facilities to cover it. And again, in the next 8 to 10 years, we'll need another elementary school somewhere in the Johnson City schools, and the funding for that could be 10 to 20 years down the line. So we need to look at those issues very closely.
Mr. Greenlee?
I think Johnson City and Washington County needs good schools for both sides, the Washington County school system and the Johnson City school system. They need to work together to make them fit. But our problem is we pay city and county taxes and we don't get a lot of benefit out of it. We don't get a lot of benefit from the county when we do a lot of things like rebuilding schools and upgrading schools and doing a lot of things to it. The county needs that too, because I've been in several of the schools and seen a lot of things go on in the schools, the upgrades. But Johnson City needs schools too, just like the Town Acre School. It's one of our older elementary schools that needs upgraded, probably need a new school, because it was built on the model of Science Hill with the outdoor going in, classrooms, just like they did at Fairmont, upgraded. And that's what we need. But we gotta work together with the bonds and the things that happen as far as the money coming to the city. We need to get our fair share. Thank you.
Ms. Simpson?
Thank you for this question. It's a really hard question, and the city and county leaders have been wrestling with this for years. One thing I want to point out is that the Johnson City Schools spends less per pupil than almost every system in East Tennessee, but they get better results. So we should really be thankful for that. We have a great school system. That doesn't mean we're not going to face financial concern in the future. Like has been said previously, I agree, relationships need to be continued and built, and that's a long process, that's a long game. We also need to work with our state leaders because this is a legal issue, it's in the law, so it really probably needs to be addressed at the state level. Thank you.
Mr. Kinnick?
First of all, nobody on the school board or probably anywhere in Johnson City is questioning that Washington County, Boones Creek and Jonesboro needed new schools. That's never been a question. They do. The problem is the funding mechanisms. So the first time around with Boones Creek, they used the loophole in the law that said if they paid cash, they didn't have to borrow. That wasn't for all of it. That was for about 20 million. We should have got about 18 million. And I don't care if it's legal, it's not ethical. I mean, how do you take somebody else's money and spend it just on something that, is just the county and not in the city? It's whether it's legal or not isn't really the question, it's not ethical. So this time around, they take a bond. The law is pretty clear on that. If you take a bond, you got to share it. So somehow they think they don't need to share it when they're taking the bond for Jonesboro. Again, I gave a solution before that with that same amount of money, they could take care of both school systems. And I still believe that's a possibility. I don't believe the county commission will actually take that serious and look at that, but that's where we need to go. And I do hope our city commissioners, be interesting to hear their take on this, will do the right thing, because like I said before, this Town Acres is not the only need we have. We're going to have more before the next 5 or 10 years up. And like Paula was alluding to, depending on whose numbers you believe, it's anywhere from 8 to 14 years before we be able to build town acres at the rate we're going now without having tax increases or doing something else or actually getting some money from the county.
Mr. Linville?
Thank you. You know, this is not uncomplex, and I have to say that there are a lot of people in the community that still really don't quite understand everything, and it is not easy to explain. I agree with what everybody said. This is a situation not of our choosing, and we find ourselves in sort of a predicament in terms of how the commission's going to lead from here on in terms of their votes and things like that. But, you know, I agree with this concept that a regional approach is very critical to how we're successful as a region. We cannot succeed as a region by playing one system against another. And so those relationships that others have mentioned tonight are critical to our success and being able to plan for the future, whether that's capital needs, whether that's the needs inside the classroom. We've got to be in a situation where those ethical questions don't divide us. And I think those are the critical points that need to be considered as we move forward on this issue.
Thank you. Question 3. Significant disruptions in educational programs occurred as a result of COVID-19. Academic and emotional gaps may have occurred with students over the time of distance learning. How can the Board of Education assist teachers, administrators, and others in addressing these gaps? And we will start with Mr. Wiljohn.
Thank you. If there's ever been a time that has raised to the consciousness of the community how important the school board is, I think it's this time. And to address that question on COVID and how it has disrupted our education system, I think the first thing that, and I applaud the way that our school board has handled the situation up to this point, the way that we deployed technology, that is not going away. That is going to be with us for some time to come. I think getting our kids back into school was the right decision. I applaud our school board members here for making that. For someone that has 6 kids, getting kids into school made a lot of sense. It was also great for school teachers. My sister is an educator, and I heard what her thoughts were. I've got close friends that are educators. That's where they wanted to be, in the school system, teaching kids on a day-to-day basis. And I think that was an important step for us. But going forward, it's going to be a while before we're out of this. I think keeping our kids in school in a safe environment, as safe as we possibly can make it, is paramount to the success of children. They need to be in school. They need to have that interaction not only with their friends, but also their educators and their teachers. And whatever we need to do, whether it's financially, whether it's technology, hybrid scheduling, whatever we need to do, keeping our kids in the school system is of paramount importance. Thank you.
Ms. Treese.
Fortunately, we have a lot of staff and educators who are forward seeking, reaching in this town. They saw an opportunity 2 or 3 years ago to get all this technology into our schools. Some people thought it was crazy that we were giving a one-to-one computers to kids. But in this time and time frame, it was the right decision 2 to 3 years ago, so that each of our kids was able to have a device at home when we had to come home in the spring, and our teachers were able to continue to teach. Now we have those that are at home and those that are at school, but we're still looking forward and how we can continue to teach our kids and keep the academic standards that we already have. As far as the emotional gaps, that's going to be a problem that we're going to have to deal with probably for years. My fear is that our children have gone through this, and we don't know, because we didn't go through this, how the emotional effects of this will last, but I'm afraid it will last for years, and our school district will need to look at some ways to help those kids get through some of this fear that has happened because of the pandemic.
Mr. Greenlee.
Since we are doing the virtual, and some kids had been out of school before we started back this week with the full school, you know, we had a lot of kids that wasn't learning or wasn't picking up through the virtual because they didn't have no mentors or somebody just to keep an eye on them. while they was going. We had some programs like Coalition for Kids and after-school programs that kind of helped out with mentors or somebody to keep them on track. But, you know, a lot of our kids don't do that. They go in there and they get on it, and then the next thing you know, they're out and about, and they don't keep up with their studies and fall through the cracks. But we need to help our teachers, administrators, in addressing this gap, and get a lot of mentors to help. We have mentors at our center that helps all the time, just volunteer and do things. If it's math, if it's computer science or other things that go on in their life at school, they can help, or just communicate with them or talk to them. That's the biggest thing. Or something that happens at home that they just gotta get over. We try to help, and we try to seek help for them. That's what we gotta do. And that helps the teachers, administrators, to adjust and to get along with them. Thank you.
Ms. Simpson?
As a part of my campaign for the school board, I enjoyed meeting with several of the principals in Johnson City schools. And I encourage you to talk to your principals if you have students in schools. It was such a fabulous experience. I learned so much about what's going on, and I was so encouraged to hear how teachers and administrators are already seeking to fill those gaps. Dr. Woods at Lake Ridge shared with me about a reading camp they did this summer to help kids maintain literacy levels, and I have heard reports that the losses are not as bad, the gaps are not as bad as expected. And that is a testament to teachers, administrators, parents, and community members have helped kids. Nevertheless, I'm certain there will be gaps. And this goes back to my point from before. I don't know what those gaps are going to be, but it is the job of the school board to continually assess those gaps and to be nimble and forward-thinking to adjust and provide the resources needed for the schools to meet those needs. Thank you.
Mr. Kinnick?
Yes, people need to understand that the school board is not hands-on. So as Ms. Treese alluded to, we did a great job in being ahead of the game on technology. Well, we're also ahead of the game on people. We hired a great superintendent. We've hired great administrators, great principals, great teachers, great staff. So all those people have been doing their job and doing the innovating that they needed to do during the weird times of the pandemic, and then things flow back up when they have needs. And once they get to us, we take care of meeting those needs. For example, like the free Zoom was going to run out last month. And so they directed the teachers they were going to have to use some other tools. Well, it came back that they really needed the Zoom. That flowed back up to us, and we said, yes, you know, we'll pay for it. You figure it out, you let us know, and we took care of that. So that's where we come in. Because we have the great people that we have, they let us know, and we take action when we need to keep them being able to do the job with the resources that they need, and that's the primary thing that we do.
Mr. Linville?
Thanks. As I mentioned earlier, this widening gap that we see in terms of academic performance with our students is one that really is forefront in my mind as a result of the pandemic. And you know, the other gaps that exist, emotional gaps, I know in my day job, one of the things that we really take a hard look at is mental well-being of not just our students, but of our faculty and staff. And so I think those are the things that we have to be mindful of and address, as my colleagues have said here, in terms of being able to provide resources in your role as a board. But another piece that I think is critical, and Dr. Wallace mentioned this last night at the board meeting, is that we have to be ready to make changes to our plans. I think people have talked about being nimble, and that is critical to be able to say, you know, we plan to do this, and now we got to make a change, because there are things that are happening during this pandemic that we couldn't foresee, and we need to be nimble enough to be able to take advantage of those changes, implement them quickly, efficiently, and be mindful of the impact that it has both on our learners and on our teachers and staff. Thanks.
Ms. Carter?
I sort of feel like it's story time when I say this, but imagine a world where a child doesn't see a smile. Imagine a world where a child doesn't get a hug. And that is the world that our kids are living in right now. And I know this because the child that gets in my car after school is not the child that I really know. And it breaks my heart. I hear the same story repeated by moms that come in my office all day. Whether they have a boy or a girl, the resounding theme is my kids are not my kids right now. When you don't feel good about yourself, I think the teaching can be excellent. We can be on par, whether it's virtual or in person, but if you don't feel good about yourself and the surroundings and who you are, it's difficult to learn in any situation. So although we have to be wise and cautious, I agree and so thankful that our board allowed the option for our kids to go back to school. That was definitely the right decision for me and my family, and I want to continue to do that in a safe way and provide those opportunities, because at all levels, kids that were A and B students are, coming home, not A's and B's anymore. And I don't think that's a decreased effort of our teachers. It is the situation. And so these social skills and mental health issues are so, so important, and as a mom and a physician. So thank you.
Question number 4. Is your candidacy limited by anything that could be perceived as a conflict of interest? And if so, how will you make sure it doesn't affect your decisions on the board? We'll start this round with Ms. Treese.
I don't believe that my candidacy is limited by a perceived conflict of interest. And if it was, I would make sure that I would let the board know on any decisions that were made. Mr. Belial last night did the perfect thing, and I know Mr. Hager called him out on that, that he had a conflict of interest and stated it before the vote was taken last night. I would do the same in the same position.
Mr. Greenlee?
Well, I shouldn't have a conflict of interest. I don't have any kids in the school system. I have nieces and nephews, a bunch of them, because I come from a family of 11, had 7 sisters, so I've got a lot of interest in that. But I don't have a conflict of interest because I'm for all kids, no matter where they come from, the east side, west side, north side, or south side, because our city is important. Even the kids in the county are important. Every kid is important every day that they wake up and go to school and learn and be a part of a good society and a citizen of Johnson City.
Ms. Simpson?
I don't believe I have any conflict of interest either, and I agree with Paula and Herb that I would certainly let you know if I felt like I did have a conflict of interest, and it would be the right thing to report that. So, thank you.
Mr. Kinnick?
No. In the interest of time.
Okay. Mr. Linville?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's in our policies, it's in the Tennessee law. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. If you have a conflict of interest, you disclose that and you recuse yourself from any decision-making. It's very simple, and I would follow that.
Okay. Ms. Carter?
I echo David's comments. I do have a student, and I'm married to a teacher and a coach. It's the same person. And so I guess if we were going to vote on him getting a raise or something, although I would be for that, I would recuse myself from that vote. And I'm accustomed to doing that. I think, as David said, at ETSU, I serve on the admissions committee. And if I've had a student that's rotated with me and then applies for medical school, we identify that early and we remove ourselves from that process so that it is objective and as fair as possible.
Mr. Wiljohn?
I think I've demonstrated a long history of values-based, principled decision-making. That would not change. I agree with everything that's been said, Herb in particular, of we're here for all kids, right? We're not here just for our kids. We're here for all kids, and I would echo that. And I would commit that if there was ever a conflict of interest, can't imagine what it would be, but I would certainly recuse myself in that situation.
Thank you. Question number 5. Approximately 30% of the Johnson City school students are Black, Hispanic, or Indigenous Native American. The demographic composition of faculty, staff, and administrators does not reflect a similar diversity. What should schools do to bolster diversity and equity for students and teachers? And we'll start with Mr. Greenlee.
Well, I think we need more teachers and administrators in our school system to help out with the mentoring and the teaching of the kids. A lot of times we forget about our history the history of Johnson City, the history of the community. And the diversity is always there, like we have Umoja festivals or something like that. But a lot of things that happen, we have Asians, we have Chinese, we have all kinds of different groups of people that are in our school system. The Latinos, the Liberians. And they need to know that they gotta have a voice in the community or on the board that can help that. And sometimes it gets on deaf ears when things happen or crop up. We need that thing that helps the teachers out to identify what needs the kids have to help out, to make them grow and survive.
Ms. Simpson?
It is a privilege that we have such diversity in our small community. There are many communities in America that don't have the diversity that we have. It has been a joy for my children to learn and know about different cultures that they had not previously known about. I think there are two things that Johnson City Schools can do to address the diversity issue between students and teachers. First is to educate ourselves on where our diversity is, and so that teachers and students know what the different groups are that they're represented, and to know where we're lacking in meeting that. And the school board needs to probably address that, and I know they have, as Herb mentioned earlier, have a diversity committee that was meeting this summer. So looking at the need right away. Secondly, what's good for all students is good for diversity. If we are educating all students from all walks of life, we are providing future teachers, future leaders, and that will in turn address the diversity issue.
Mr. Kinnick?
Yes, I agree a lot with what was just said there also. And I can't remember the exact number, but we were told 60-some different languages spoken in Johnson City schools. It's just amazing. And, as far as staff and administrators, yes, we have some diversity. Yes, we could use more. We can't necessarily control who applies, but we certainly encourage diverse candidates to apply and look at everybody fairly. And the diversity committee was mentioned, and that's been a good thing. And they specifically did not want school board members on there for a good reason, because they want people to be able to speak out and not feel like they can't speak because of who is there. So we hear through our superintendent what comes out of that committee, and that'll give us some guidance in the future to take actions to help with this.
Mr. Linville?
This isn't a passive process. This is not something where you just say, these are our values, we'll sit back and see who might apply. I think you have to be very active in recruiting and retaining diversity in terms of your instructional staff and your administrators. It's critical, and to be able to bring those changes to where you're able to successfully recruit and retain minority candidates into positions, you've got to have those discussions happening regularly in your culture. It is not something that you just create a plan or you have a committee and you just say, well, this is what we're going to do, and we didn't meet the outcomes. You got to make sure you meet outcomes. You've got to make sure that you can maintain that discussion and move forward. Otherwise, you're just going to be spinning your wheels, and that doesn't get us anywhere as a community.
Ms. Carter?
I feel much like Beth does that we are very fortunate to live in this community that offers a lot of diversity. I know of many programs and activities at Science Hill currently, because I participated in those, that we actively seek mentors in the community, like Mr. Greenlee and others, who have really worked with our students, whether it's athletes or in mentoring jobs like Matt mentioned as well, where we can foster those relationships, whether they're employed by Johnson City Schools or leaders in the community. So it's there for us to tap into, to actively seek and recruit, but I think the opportunities are there, and I think that there are already many in place that can be developed further.
Mr. Wiljoe?
One of the great experiences that I had as a young man in Johnson City and ETSU was the opportunity to play football. That, like I mentioned, and I think when I was at Science Hill, it was maybe 10% African American, and then I get in a locker room at ETSU, and it was like 65% African American. So there was definitely a difference in culture, which was unquestionably one of the best experiences of my entire time here at ETSU. I have 2 children that I've adopted that are minorities. And I have a belief that, and thank goodness for this, the times are changing, right? And our children are not seeing difference like we saw difference when we were young. I think that's changing, thank goodness, with our younger generation. And so the question is not just, is this a political deal? Is it a left deal? Is it a right deal? It's not that. Here's the reality. And I mentioned this earlier, when we graduated from high school, we were competing in Upper East Tennessee, largely against people that looked kind of like me. The reality is, when the young children that enter our school today are graduating high school, they're going to be competing against people that look like my son and daughter who are Chinese or African American or Hispanic or whatever. So diversity is something that we don't need to run from. It's something we need to embrace. And the last thing I'll say is, in terms of teachers, we've got a great resource here at ETSU. It was formed as a teaching school. We've got the resources here, and I just think I look forward to the future.
Thank you, Matt. Ms. Treese.
Wow, you all have had great questions. This is a hard one to follow, be the last one on. I think we need to look at working with our students at Science Hill and encourage them to go into teaching and mentoring. Teaching, over the years has become one of those jobs that people just don't want to do, but it's a way to grow our community and grow our future. So we need to look at showing kids that teaching is a great place to be and a great way to grow diversity in our community, to encourage mentors from all aspects of our community in with all of our kids from every aspect. I mean, we need to look at getting our English language learners and their families who don't speak English into our schools and helping in our schools also and mentoring those kids. In that way, it grows that community also. So we need to look at all of our different diversity. And again, 60 languages, when they told us that, it just blew my mind. Think of all those countries that people come from and choose Johnson City for diversity and very, very reasons. But we need to look at getting more teachers who are in those minority groups through ETSU. It would be a great partnership.
Okay. Question number 6. How can Tennessee improve its approach to standardized testing, and what role should tests play in measuring effectiveness? We'll start this round with Ms. Simpson.
So if you have kids in the Johnson City schools, you've probably heard the moaning when TCAPs are coming. And my kids always complain, we shouldn't have tests, this is too mean. And tests are hard, and nobody likes them, but life is full of tests. We need to have tests to measure what we've learned. It's a best way to measure what you've learned. It measures what the teachers have taught you, it measures what you learned. So tests don't need to be eliminated, for sure. They're important, you're not gonna avoid them in life, and the tests only get bigger and harder. Nevertheless, we need to make sure that we have systems in place that recognize that a child is not a test score. And I don't think that that is the case in Johnson City schools. I think we look very well at students and their whole picture. But we just need to constantly assess and make sure that we are viewing each child as an individual and not a test score.
Mr. Kinnick.
So, yeah, that's a tough one because we can't control the state. So 2 years in a row, they were attempting to do digital testing. It went horribly wrong, bad enough that they couldn't use the results. So then they finally get it working, and as it's working, they decide, we're going to switch to paper. So we need them to get their act together, and then after that, then the pandemic hit. So we still aren't on any kind of normal. And as was said, there is a role for tests, but for the last 2 years, we have been advocating to replace the EOC test with the ACT. Most colleges either require or prefer the ACT. that gives a pretty good result on your English and math and your basic things. There might still be some other classes that the end of course test makes sense, but to have the same things going on, I mean, there's an EOC, and then the teacher might give their own test, and then there's the ACT. There's got to be a happy medium in there where we don't need all of that repetitive testing, and something as standardized as the ACT would make it a even level playing field for everybody across the country to compare against. So we're still pushing for that.
Mr. Linville?
So assessments are critical. They're not fun, but we have outcomes that we expect to reach in terms of being able to measure the success of what we're doing in the classroom. And I think one of the things we've got to think about, as Jonathan said, there's not a lot that we can do sometimes to change certain parameters that are handed to us from the state in terms of how they go about testing. But I think we have to be critical of how we use those outcomes to make improvements within our system. Governor Haslam many years ago set us on the Drive to 55 initiative, where we're working to have 55% of the population have some credential after high school. And I think we have seen significant growth in the state. We're recognized at the national level for being an innovator in terms of education, and we've had a great track record, but we're beginning to slip a little bit. And if you read where we are, it's not just the pandemic, it's not just the problems that we've had with testing. We've got to reevaluate what that means for us in terms of outcomes and how to get to the next level. We cannot afford to stall at the state level, and that's critical, not just at the state level, but our local level as well. So, thank you.
Ms. Carter?
Well, having taken many tests through the years, I agree, I think as all the candidates, that it is a necessary part of education, a necessary part of life. And at the highest level in my education, of course, the tests were pretty hard, and they needed to be. The stakes were high. As I serve on the admissions committee now for the College of Medicine, though, as Beth had said, we also know that although there is a threshold or a standard that we need to meet, that does not define the person, the student, the candidate. And so for us to label that child as this test score would not be appropriate. But I think it also helps identify maybe some learning issues that we can help students with if they're not scoring well on the test. It's not just a measure for the teachers, but sometimes it's an indicator of a way we can help a student learn in different ways. And so I think we need to look at it as a tool, not as a punishment. How can I help this student in this area, and how can we help our teachers as well?
Mr. Wildrum?
Without repeating everything that's been said, I would agree that the need for tests are there, will continue to be there, and like Mr. Kinnick said, there's really not a ton that we can do to get away from standardized testing. I think the points I want to reiterate are on the value of the student is not what his or her test score is. I'm very aware of people that have scored well and have gone on and had what you would think is successful careers. I'm also aware of folks that did not score well on tests, did not have great GPAs, but ultimately it's the acquisition of knowledge, being able to apply that into real world problems that enable them to go on and be successful. I think that is ultimately the skill that our educators ultimately want, right? We have to be measured by tests for lots of reasons, but I think if we can further instill in our children two things. A test score and a degree is not what your end-all be-all goal is. It is the continual and lifelong acquisition of knowledge that you can apply in your life to be a productive human being. That is what our teachers are focused on. And I think the more that we can emphasize that and hold up models in real life on what that looks like, I think the better off our children are going to be.
Ms. Treese?
As Tennessee taxpayers, we paid $108 million to have standardized tests last year. They didn't work. They didn't work the year before. They didn't work the year before that. one of the problems that I see with that is when we test in May or December, especially the May test, which covers 3rd through about 11th grade, when we test then, those scores do not come back to the school district until October, November, December, sometimes January. At that point, they're not really critical to what our kids have learned. So the testing that we've done then is not, by the time we get it, our kids are well beyond that area. Also, the tests are written by the testing company. The questions are written by the testing company, and our teachers and our staff don't get to see those questions. They just get to see the answers to those questions. And in past years, it's been shown through various ways, various people, that those questions, like they might give a 3rd grade question to a 4th grader, or a 4th grade question to a 3rd grader. They don't necessarily follow the Tennessee state standards. And that's a real issue, and it's something that we need to take up with the State Department of Education.
Mr. Greenlee?
My thing is common knowledge of what you know in the community and what you know in history. That's gonna carry you when you put to the test. It's just like, I'll take a test for football, or I'll take a test for basketball. The kids take a test, the common knowledge of everyday life, of getting around and doing a lot of things. That's the part of the test. But when they take the test to measure their effectiveness, that's what they need. But the thing about it is, they've got to learn the skills and working with people and asking questions about what's going on in life and in the community. They need help with mentors and their parents helping them out with different situations so they can meet those needs. That's what I see about testing.
Thank you, candidates. You've done an excellent job. We'll now start with our closing statements, and we will start with Ms. Simpson and go the opposite way.
Thank you again for the opportunity to share a little bit about my reasons for running for school board. It has really been a privilege to sit up here with so many qualified candidates. I believe this is a reflection of a vibrant community who has our children's best interests in mind. Our community's success is dependent on Johnson City Schools preparing students, all students, to be well-educated, college and career-ready citizens. I ask that you vote for me as I serve the community to provide level-headed leadership, help Johnson City Schools continue to expand its mission to enable all students to achieve excellence.
Mr. Greenlee?
Well, I'm running for the Johnson City School Board is to help all kids and parents and others to have that voice being heard when it comes to the board about different situations that go on in our schools. We've got great schools, but sometimes the kids and the parents sometimes don't get heard. And that's why I'm running, to make a difference in the community, make a difference in the schools. We can build schools forever, but we can't build that character of the kid and teach them about manners and about how to get along with people of different colors or backgrounds. That's what it's all about, getting everybody on the same page, doing the same thing. Thank you.
Ms. Treese?
Again, I've worked as an advocate for children for the last 15 years, both at the city, state, and national levels. I'm not afraid to speak out when I feel like something's not right for our children in our community. I believe education is the key to keeping our community vibrant and healthy for years and years and years to come, and I ask for your vote. Thank you.
Mr. Wiljohn?
I think if COVID has taught us anything, it's that when it comes to the school board, the stakes are high. And I think now is the time for level-headed, critical decision makers to be in a position that has all children in their best interests. I applaud each of the candidates here, and I think they're all each worthy. I think given my experience in the community, in the business community, my financial experience, as well as having 6 children at every level of school, at the elementary schools, at Liberty Bell, and at Science Hill. I'm in direct contact with parents, teachers, administrators, at every level, every day. And I am open and you will have my ear on any issue that you want. I not only ask for your vote, but when your friends are asking you who you're voting for, I would ask that you say Matt Wiljum.
Ms. Carter?
I'm Ginger Carter, running for the school board. I hope that you have gotten a little glimpse of who I am tonight and why I'm seeking to serve our community on the board. I would like to bring my passion as a mother and my background in business leadership and teaching to work on efforts to improve our schools and therefore our entire community. I hope that you will join me on this journey. I feel like we do have the best school in Johnson City and in the state, and we want to continue to have that. I would appreciate your vote. I'm very accessible. I would love to answer any questions that the community may have. And I hope that in a few weeks, or actually starting tomorrow, that you will vote for me for school board. Thanks.
Mr. Linville?
Thank you. It makes my heart full to sit up here with such qualified candidates and recognize that our school system is in such great hands. We're among heroes. Our school system is made up of them, and it would be my honor and privilege to be able to serve on the board. Education, we have to be all things to all people in the Johnson City Schools. That's not what you normally hear when you talk about being able to provide services. Education for my son that graduated with a special education diploma is different. He had to learn to get on a bus with an assistant and go shop for groceries. That's different than my 10th grader who's struggling with some type of honor or AP college level course. So I'm just honored to be able to have the opportunity to run. I would greatly appreciate your support, and please know that I'm willing to serve both the school board and this community. Thank you.
And our final, Mr. Kinnick.
Yes, we have some great candidates here. I will say I do believe experience makes a difference. I've been on the board for 4 years. I'm the longest serving incumbent that's running, with Mr. Belial not running this time. There's only 2 other school board members, Kathy Hull and Tom Hager, that have served longer than I have. And I think that experience and history brings a lot to the board, and I would appreciate your vote so I can keep doing this. I really enjoy it. If you want to know more about me, go to votekinnick.org, and on Facebook, it's facebook.com/votekinnick. I'd appreciate your vote. Jonathan Kinnick. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates, for being willing to run for office. It is commendable that you chose to volunteer to serve your town, your county, your state, and your country. The League of Women Voters want to thank you for your participation in this forum tonight. And now I'd like to bring forward Mr. Sam Watson with the Johnson City Press, one of our partners.
Good evening. On behalf of our publisher, Rick Thomason, I'd like to thank each of you for participating tonight. The Johnson City Press has a long history of covering education, and I personally did that for 19 years. So I know how important this board is to our community, and I thank you for being willing to serve, and we appreciate your frankness and your answers tonight. So thank you for coming out.
Please thank everybody and each other for being here. And that ends our forum. Thank you. All right, if candidates could take everything that's sitting in front of you
Fulkerson. It is my pleasure to welcome you to tonight's candidate forum with candidates seeking office on the Johnson City City Commission. On behalf of the Johnson City Press, the League of Women Voters of Northeast Tennessee, and ETSU Votes, we're excited to host tonight's event. Thanks to all of our candidates for being here tonight, and we look forward to a great conversation in advance of the November 3rd election. The League of Women Voters, we're about empowering voters and defending democracy, and this is one of our activities for the year. Thank you all so much. At this time, I'll introduce our moderator for the evening, Ms. Dana York.
Good evening, candidates. We appreciate your willingness to participate in this forum as candidates that are running for the position of City Commission of Johnson City. I am Dana York and a member of the East Tennessee League of Women Voters, and I will be your moderator. The forum format is as follows. Each candidate will be allowed a 2-minute opening statement and a 1-minute closing statement. Their order of participation was predetermined by drawing. After the first speaker, the order answers will rotate with each round of questions. Each candidate's response to a question is limited to 1.5 minutes or 90 seconds. The league timekeeper in front of me will indicate when 30 seconds remain with a yellow square and when time is up with a red square. You will be required to stop at that time. Candidates were provided with 2 questions in advance. They have not seen the remaining questions that were determined by representatives from the partnering organizations and are edited to ensure they are non-biased, respectful, and relevant to the race for which the participating candidates are running. No questions will be posed from the audience. Candidates, this is a forum where we want to provide voters with your views on the issues presented. There will be no cross-questioning or additional responses as in a debate. Public forums such as this one work best if a high level of civility and decorum are observed. Audience members will please refrain from responding to candidates' responses until the very end of the forum so we can have time for as many questions as possible. And now we will start with our opening statements. Mr. Wise.
Thank you. My name is Joe Wise, and I come here tonight with 7 years specific experience in local government, but really a keen interest in it throughout my entire adult life. 7 years ago, I was called upon to serve on the Johnson City Planning Commission and did that for a number of years, serving as the chair for 2, and then I was elected to the County Commission and have now served 4 years as a city commissioner. I mentioned the Planning Commission because I think it is one where I began to realize sometimes government is asked the question of the day and it's not asked the questions that matter. When I was chairing the Johnson City Planning Commission, there was an occasion where a developer wanted to tear down the mill and wanted to build student housing there. And the question before us was a zoning question. We didn't get to decide whether that was the best thing for Johnson City. And so when that project fell apart, the Planning Commission appointed a task force that would look at the West Walnut Street district, and that's what we set out to do several years ago. And today you're seeing in the model mill being renovated and repurposed, and in other projects along that corridor, the fruits of those labor. And that really reflects, in my view, when local government knows what local government can do and does it with professionalism and proactivity. Over the last 4 years, we've made a sustained investment in water and sewer infrastructure, roads, and new school construction, specifically at Liberty Bell, and public amenities like King Commons and Tannery Knob and the Langston Center. We've done it while balancing 4 budgets and calling upon property taxes for no increased taxes, while paying off millions of dollars of general fund indebtedness. Personally, I'm committed to this community as a father of 3 children in our schools. My wife and I own a business here and are active in the community because we want to see all of Johnson City flourish.
Ms. Norwood.
My name's Alana Norwood, and I'm 22 years old. I think I might be the youngest person sitting at this table today, and that's perfectly okay with me. Really, I'm running for Johnson City Commission because I was called upon by several people of the community that I was new to, and at first I didn't really know if this was like what I was supposed to be doing or if this was like the right move for me as a recent college graduate. But ultimately, I decided to run because I saw how much faith the community had in me to serve them. And it just feels like an obligation at this point to do everything in my power to make Johnson City a place that's good for the people that live here now, but also a welcoming and inviting community for a diverse population that may want to come here in the future. So as a young Black woman from this area, it's really important for me to really just use my voice and use the agencies that be, such as local government, to make a difference for the everyday people, for people that look like me, for young people that may not be confident enough or know exactly how to use their voices to create change. So I'm using this local public platform to empower young people and continue the education of those that want to make a difference and empower those that kind of have felt defeated because they haven't been represented or have spoken up and haven't seen the changes that they feel like are warranted to make this community work for them. So that's my piece, and I'm looking forward to answering some questions and to allow you guys to get to know me a little bit better tonight. Thank you.
Mr. Beagle?
As she had mentioned, I'm Kyle Beagle. I'm a recent ETSU graduate with a degree in international relations and history. When my family moved here a while back, we actually established roots in the area. We created our own small business here, a couple actually. So small businesses is very important to me and my family. And I never had the aspirations to actually run for office. I decided to run and place my bid this election because of the social, political, and economic disparities that face or that impact our generation, and the failure to acknowledge that from the elected officials that are in office federally, state, and locally. My aspirations was focused on becoming a lawyer and fighting for human rights violations. And again, one day that might happen, but right now I feel like the best course of action would be to get elected and fight for human rights and for humans in this office, starting locally and building up from there. And I'm actually here to break the disconnect between the generation that's leading us and our generation that's coming up. So thank you so much.
Mr. Williams?
Thank you very much. Thank you to the League and to the Johnson City Press for holding this forum. Some of you know me, some of you won't. I'm Dr. Attorney Williams. I'm a medical practitioner. I've been serving the citizens of Johnson City for 33 years. I'm the medical director for a multidisciplinary pain service with 5 physicians and psychologists and psychiatrists and physical therapists. So it's a complicated business, but it is indeed a business. And I'm very used to planning and budgets and personnel management and all the things that have to go into the business decisions that we all make and that the City Commission is compelled to make. I'm also the medical director for 10 years, actually, of 2 freestanding surgery centers. So I'm used to trying to bring people together for a common goal. I'm a member of the Tennessee Medical Association Legislative Committee, which is an organization that looks at all the bills that are coming before the state legislature, reviews those bills for its impact on its citizens, and then we lobby the state legislature regarding those bills. So I'm used to the different levels of government interaction. We attend Boones Creek Church, and lastly, I'm a long-term board member of the Washington County Humane Society. I'm pretty much a dog person. My spouse is a collector of cats. I believe that my long-term residence here and interest in the community just means that I'm a right-minded person. I think I have the right training, and I want to keep Johnson City on the right track, and I very much appreciate the opportunity to be here. Thank you.
Ms. Harley McClaskey?
My name is Debbie Harley McClaskey, and I'm asking for your vote to be your Johnson City Commissioner. As a 35-year professional at ETSU, I've taught graduate and undergraduate classes in leadership and nonprofit management, directed a 6-year grant which created a service-oriented partnership among 8 colleges and universities from Chattanooga to Bristol. I'm an author of 2 textbooks on leadership and have a doctorate in educational leadership and policy analysis. I've served as a consultant in leadership development and planning to many regional organizations. I've been an examiner for the Tennessee Center for Performance Excellence and a quality judge for Ballot Health. I've served on the board of Coalition for Kids, Girl Scouts, Second Harvest Food Bank. I'm a graduate of the Chamber's Leadership Program and served on the team that developed the first youth leadership program. My family owns a small business which teaches excellence in business operations, both regionally and nationally. All of this work is about serving and solving problems. Personally, over 36 years, I've called Johnson City home, raised my daughters here, served as a volunteer leading a Girl Scout troop, raised funds for the Science Hill Marching Band uniforms, volunteers in our schools, and served on the Homeless Task Force. I bring different skills, connections, and experiences to the city, experiences that connect me to the people of the community, whether students, healthcare workers, educators, business owners, first responders, parents, or families who are making it 1 week at a time. I believe being a good commissioner is demonstrated by listening, building people connections, and serving community. And that's how I will serve Johnson City.
Mr. Fowler.
Hi, my name is Todd Fowler, and I'm running for re-election to the City Commission. I've been on the commission for 4 years. I am a Christian. I attend First Christian Church here with my wife of 34 years, Sally, and I have 5 children that were all raised here in Johnson City. All of them, well, 4 of them graduated from Science Hill, 1 from University School, and 3 of them have attended ETSU. I've lived here more years than any other place, 27 years. I have come to call this home, and I have worked at Watauga Orthopedics those 27 years. I have volunteered as a team physician at Science Hill High School, at ETSU, at Milligan, taking care of Appalachian baseball teams, Johnson City Cardinals, Elizabethton Twins. I have been on the Fellowship of Christian Athletes board for many years, was chairman for 10 years. I've been in Johnson City Rotary. I was one of the first presidents of the Morning Rotary Club, and their motto is service above self, and that was one of the reasons why I joined Rotary, is that community service means a lot to me. It meant a lot to my parents, and I've tried to instill that in my children. I ran for the city commission because I wanted to make Johnson City a better place. I felt like the commissioners before me had been doing a great job, and I wanted to continue what they had done and what they had planned on doing. So I've tried to do that for these 4 years, and I'd like to try to do it for 4 more years. I do care about all the people in our city and in our region, and just would like to make Johnson City the place that someone would like to live that doesn't live here. And hopefully my kids would move back here that have moved away, and one of them is coming back from Chicago in November. So at least we are making it nicer where he would like to come back from Chicago. So I would appreciate your vote.
Mr. Clark.
Yeah, thank you. As stated, my name is Jeff Clark. First, I wanted to thank those who have put this forum together, the League of Women Voters and the Johnson City Press, and all who are watching at home or watching this later. I come here today not as a politician running for personal gain, nor a businessman running to pass policies that benefit myself or my friends. Rather, I come here as a regular person just like you, a working class guy who grew up no different than the majority of the citizens of our great city. I decided to run for office because I saw a real problem with how this city has been run. Our elected leadership has failed all of our city's working class residents. Instead of showing compassion and helping those who need it most, our city commission has used their office to create a pro-wealthy agenda that only helps those at the top and gives scraps to those at the bottom. Now they may defend their actions, saying that the pro-wealthy agenda trickles benefits down to people like me and you. However, the facts are just not on their side. With 15% of the city's households under the federal poverty limit and another 38% falling under the Alice category, which means they live above the poverty line but don't make enough to afford the cost of living, how can our commission say that they care about all of our city's residents? I believe they can do better than this for the people of Johnson City. I am running for office because I believe a pro-people agenda is what this city needs, and that's how I plan to govern. It is well past due for the working class of Johnson City to have a true representative on the Johnson City Commission, and that is what our campaign is all about. I am running to bring compassion to the commission and hope you will join me in doing so. Thank you.
Mr. Murphy.
Thank you. I'm Aaron T. Murphy. I want to thank the Johnson City Press, the ETSU Women's League of Voters, and also ETSU and the Women's League of Voters for hosting this event. I was born in Reynolds, Virginia, but I grew up in Memphis, Tennessee, and as a child, we would pass ETSU or Johnson City regularly, and I would spend the night here with a local pastor by the name of Reverend C.H. Charlton, who has been a mentor to me all my life. My mother's alumni of ETSU, so am I. I graduated from ETSU, got a job with Robinson Morton, moved all over the country, but after spending years moving state to state, working with city leaders all over the country, leading multi-million-dollar healthcare construction projects, I answered the call to serve in a different way. I made the decision to transition my career from corporate America to the nonprofit arena, and serving those in poverty through education, mentoring, and social services at Good Samaritan Ministries, where I serve as the CEO and executive director. Also answered the call to pastor a local church by the name of Thankful Baptist Church. I also am the chaplain to our police chief, and also serve on the JCDA. I'm a part of Rotary. I'm glad to be a part of Johnson City. I believe that I've gained the experience to lead our community that consists of many different kinds of people, to lead our community from chaos to togetherness, and hopefully bringing unity and advancement. I've balanced budgets over $115,000. I've led over $94 million in new construction, and I've assisted with over 850,000 homeless prevention cases here in our region. I'm asking for your vote. Please do vote for Aaron T. Murphy. Thank you.
Thank you. Question 1. What would be your primary goals as a commissioner? We'll start this with Ms. Norwood.
So my primary goals for commission would essentially be to look at our post-pandemic recovery efforts, post being who knows when, but trying to figure out how to navigate the whole COVID situation, looking at, how are our small businesses and local businesses going to be able to continue to survive, offering, help from the commission or different agencies that are in the area that can help them get the assistance that they need to stay open. Another thing would be to, being a city commissioner, you do have the power to extend delinquent property tax payments in a semi-annual format. And so I think that could help a lot of people that are homeowners that would like to stay in their home and keep their deed and, pass that generational wealth on. I think that'd be something the commission could accomplish. And then another one would also be to help the people that are falling behind on their water bills. We have the power to set the rate and, collect and all that good stuff. So really just trying to help the folks that are struggling and are trying to keep it together through this pandemic and beyond the pandemic. Because let's just be real, we're all struggling in some way before this whole thing hit our city and our country. So really my primary goals are to ask the community, how can I help you as a commissioner? And if it's in my power to do that, I will do everything I can to make sure that the good people of Johnson City are getting the help that they need and deserve.
Mr. Beagle.
As I've mentioned before, the main purpose for my bid for office is political, economic, and social disparities that impact us all. As an openly gay man, I plan to provide representation for minority communities in our area. My family has small businesses in the area. They were impacted by this economic turmoil. And providing protections for our small businesses in the future, helping them in building our economy from within, starting with our local businesses is one of my focuses. Also creating a more sustainable economy for our community, providing livable wages for our members, our government officials, for our teachers, bus drivers, et cetera. Helping control the influx of rent in our area, and continuing to build up the infrastructure that has been done in our area already. That's my main focus. Thank you.
Mr. Williams.
Yes, ma'am, thank you. My primary focus running for the city commission, to be honest, is trying to keep the city on the right track. I think in recent years, our city has actually been very well run. with the guidance of Dr. Fowler and Mr. Wise and others. So I think that we're really doing a good job. I think the city government has been able to pay down millions of dollars of debt. We've been able to keep our taxes low, and we put money aside for tough times. Living within your means and spending less than you take in is kind of an old kitchen table standard that I think applies to city government as well. There are lots of things that I think we would all like to see done for the citizens of Johnson City, and we can pick and choose and discuss what we want to do to help those who perhaps have less. But the bottom line, if the city is not well-run fiscally, we won't have the money to do that. We have an excellent bond rating that lets us build new schools that you all understand are coming on board. And it helps us keep our debt low. But we have to keep the city on the right track, and that's my primary interest in running for the city commission. Thank you.
Ms. Harley McClaskey?
I intend to take a people-first focus as a Johnson City Commissioner. And that means I would like to energize and excite the citizens of this community to be engaged with our government. We have a brand-new portal that the city has put together to apply to be part of commissions and boards. But it takes more than just putting up a portal. It takes influence and talking and excitement about being a part of what city government can achieve. People become excited when those achievements are visible, when you can see planning, when you have input, when you start to see results, when you have a dashboard, if you will, that people can start to monitor the progress of goals, where goals have ownership and timelines and are properly resourced, or explanations for why we maybe had to step back for a little bit of time. It is through that energy and excitement and re-engaging our citizens to be part of this process that we gain their support for the kinds of things that we want to do. And that's where I want to spend the beginning of my time as a commissioner.
Mr. Fowler?
My primary goals would be three types: economic goals and quality of life goals, and then also infrastructure goals for the city. We need to support our existing businesses. We need to recruit new businesses to come in. We have a lot of entrepreneurial things going on, and we need to make sure we're developing those. We need workforce development in all of our educational systems. We need to retain our talent instead of the brain drain, all the graduates leaving our area. We need to attract new professionals, especially those that can work remotely to our area. We need to also continue to leverage our natural resources. As far as quality of life, we need to continue our development of downtown, of family-friendly activities like outdoor amenities like Tannery Knob and the Tweetsie Trail. We need to encourage a mix of housing opportunities coming in for everyone, and increase our services to support the working families that are having both spouses work. Infrastructure-wise, we need to continue our broadband access. Bright Ridge is doing a great job with that. We need to continue to invest in our sewer, water, and sidewalks, repaving things, and also support our best-in-class educational system, continue to support that with our money and our tax money.
Mr. Clark?
My campaign slogan is bringing compassion to the commission. What that means is that you need to look at the least of those that are being governed when you try and make decisions. You can't just look at the upper numbers, and if they balance, you're good. You have to look at the mothers who can't feed their children because they can only afford to have one job, because the job that they have only gives sporadic hours. So bringing compassion to the commission is my primary goal. And that means having a working class eye turn towards these policies. When you only have people who have run businesses, they're going to run government like business. A government is society's way of providing for everybody. It's not a for-profit company. It's not meant to run at a profit. It's meant to run at a net net neutral. So if we're not using all of our resources to help all of our residents, then we're doing a bad job. As I said in my opening statement, over 50% of Johnson City could not afford a flat tire. My goal is to make certain that we bring that number down as far as possible.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes, my primary goals as a commissioner, number one, is to build community relationships. Let's build on the existing ones while also creating new ones. Why community relationships? Because people are the greatest resource in the city. Without people, we have no community. And so I hope to continue to lead in generational and racial reconciliation efforts. Also work with community service organizations to eliminate the duplication of services so we can hold our neighbors in need accountable. I want to lead efforts in forming community collaborations with the purpose of overall community advancement. So community relationships is very important. Secondly is educational development. Support and empower our teachers to educate tomorrow's leaders, because tomorrow's leaders are tomorrow's workforce. Ensure that parents and guardians are part of the educational system, so we need to empower our parents. Lastly, economic recovery. We need to assist businesses to be better equipped and for enduring not just the current pandemic challenge, but future challenges as well, and also encourage our members to support small businesses first before seeking opportunities to give their business elsewhere. Thank you.
Mr. Wise?
Thank you. I want to echo something that was said. You don't look at the city to run like a business. It needs to follow sound business principles, but it is a nonprofit organization. It exists for a different set of priorities. Unlike a business CEO isn't subjected to this kind of exercise. Citizens don't elect that person. And so I think we're all here because we share a commitment to people, we share a commitment to our community, we share a commitment to exhibiting compassion towards others. But I think we need to also recognize the responsibilities and authorities we have in these roles. And so I hear people talk about we can set water rates. Well, we can set water rates, but water rates are an enterprise fund, and so you can't set them lower than it costs to deliver the service. And so you'd run afoul of the comptroller or the treasury if you did that. In my view, the city's primary purpose is to be a reliable partner to its citizens. That has a workforce development component, which is both education and wellness. I think it has an economic development component. Two, we need to ultimately be about recruiting and retaining and leveraging the resources we have as a community for maximum output.
Thank you. Question number 2. What do you think about the funding mechanism Washington County is using to construct the new Jonesboro school? We'll start with Mr. Beagle.
I think that our funding for the Washington County school system is, that's something I will have to look into. At this time, I have no information on this topic. Thank you.
Mr. Williams?
Yes, excellent and difficult question. Thank you very much. I'm very familiar with the funding mechanism, and I think a lot of it goes back to the saying that who you choose as your leaders matter. The mechanism for funding Washington County schools obviously involves the city, involves both the city commission and the county commission. And as you'll remember, a number of years ago, the Washington County Commission spent a lot of money to build a huge justice center. All of that was built on interest only and left Washington County with huge debt. And because of that debt, at least the Washington County Commission felt there was only so much money available to build a school in Jonesboro. The county school board couldn't decide which of the multiple plans that they had were acceptable, and ultimately decided to build their own school. So the situation is incredibly complicated. I think the situation is still under review, and I don't believe a final decision has been made. I'm not sure whether I would support the current proposal, but I would certainly support that we all sit down and re-review how this whole funding system is run so that we can avoid this situation in the future. Thank you.
Ms. Harley McClaskey?
Well, my understanding of what took place mostly came through the media, and I appreciate the details that they provide. It was certainly not a win-win for the students either, and parents of the county or the city. A lot of angry feelings, a lot of folks feeling that things weren't as transparent as they should have been in how the decisions were made. Certainly no question that a new school for the county was not needed. It clearly was. But the partnership that needs to happen between the county and the city and this common goal of educating our students, they are our students, city or county. We all rely on each other because that's part of the economic development that happens in this community. It certainly wasn't a joint collaborative partnership in any way, and it clearly does need review, and I'm not too excited about how it took place.
Mr. Fowler?
Washington County is not directly funding the school that they're building in Jonesboro. Jonesboro is borrowing the money, and then the county is going to pay off their debt. So the question is, are they bonding it or are they not bonding it? So if they are bonding it, then 48% of the money they're using really needs to go back to the city of Johnson City because we pay taxes. Johnson City is in the county. City residents pay county taxes along with the county paying county taxes. So there are loopholes in our law that says if a county pays cash for things, they do not have to share that money. If they bond it, they share that money. And we're not exactly getting our 48% if we do it this way. So there are questions about that. I don't really agree with what they're doing. I would like to have further discussion. We've talked about receiving some money from the county to make up for that. It's not, the 12 million, 15 million that we may get is not the same as the 20 plus million that we should probably get if we did it through the normal funding. So I would like that to never happen again. It did the same thing at Boones Creek School, so we're not very happy with the way things went.
Mr. Clark?
So I think one of the bigger issues here is a lack of communication between city and county officials. And that's been a problem for as long as I've been able to read the newspaper. Every couple of years, someone gets a wild hair to reinvigorate the committee in which commission and the two commissions sit together and actually try and communicate together. In fact, that's a standing committee on the Washington County Commission, includes the city manager, the county mayor, a representative from the commission board for the county, and a representative from the commission board for the city. And yet, we still have this issue of horrible communication between the two of us. And I think a lot of that comes down to the fact that we put money at the focus. We put, I need to get mine first, on both sides. When a collaborative approach, understanding that helping the students is the most important thing, helping the residents of our county and our city should be put first. I think that would improve the communication. It would have led to a more open and transparent method of funding this. And because, I mean, clearly they did it so that they wouldn't have to give the city money that they needed to do for a school. But, I mean, that's basically what it is. We need to improve the communication between the two.
Mr. Murphy?
Thank you. There is no replacement for education. There's power in education. And so in order for us to be a better community holistically, we need to educate one another. I believe that we need to build more community relationships, which that's part of my platform. And with that being said, there needs to be more communication between the county and the city when it comes to their commissioners. I had breakfast the other day with a commissioner on one side and, lunch the other day with a commissioner on the other side. And there's a communication gap. And so if we can sit down and get on the same page and build relationships, then I think the community will feel better in turn. How can the community follow leaders that they really don't talk to as much, or the leaders don't talk? And that's not taking shots at anybody, but I keep hearing this question across the board, and I think there's a lack of support from our community with our leaders' decisions. And I believe if our leaders talk with our community members more, we can have more unity, and that's what we need more now than ever in this region. Thank you.
Mr. Wise?
I'm tempted to give a one-word answer, but I won't. I've served on both the city and county commission, and I don't think that what we're dealing with here is as much a lack of communication. It's fundamentally about competing priorities that are at odds with each other over this question. The particular need in Jonesboro is undeniable. When I was on the county commission, why we were talking about Boones Creek and not talking about Jonesboro eluded me. Now, what I would say is ultimately what we're dealing with is the after effect of the McMinn County versus Athens City Schools court decision. And what it took to issue was capital funding for education that Commissioner Fowler alluded to in his response. And it has set in motion a scenario where there's an incentive to make short-sighted decisions. Those are not short-sighted decisions, in my view, being made by the city commission. Those are short-sighted decisions being made at the county commission. We know we'll probably be asked a capital question at some point before we leave tonight, and we know we have need for educational capital in Johnson City, and this particular issue is creating added pressure on us as we try to deal with those answers. And I would clarify something. Commissioner Fowler said 48% needs to come to the city. I would say 48% need to come to the students educated in the city school system. The money's not about the city, the money's about the students.
Ms. Norwood?
So honestly, don't really know a whole lot about the Jonesboro School, not gonna lie, completely transparent here. Only been living in Johnson City for about a year, but as everybody else at this board or at this conversation has said, in one way or another, there does need to, one, be more communication between the city and the county. We need to realize that we are all working towards a common goal, which is regionalism. We love to hear it. So we have to work together in order to make sure that our area as a whole is doing well. And if we're not educating our students and making them feel like they have value and a place to go that's quality, they're not going to want to stay here. They're going to go to the crappy school, do their time, graduate, and get out as fast as they can. And that's not fair to them, and that's not fair to our area as well. So I think that if it does feel like some type of competition between the county and the city, there definitely has to be a heart-to-heart, like a hard conversation, and ask those questions like, why weren't we focusing on Jonesboro instead of Boones Creek? Like, we have the agency and the authority as commissioners to ask those hard questions, and we should speak up if we feel like maybe something isn't quite right. So as I continue on my journey as a city commissioner candidate and possibly the next commissioner for Johnson City, I will be doing a lot of research and asking those hard questions that seem to kind of get skimmed over.
Question number 3. What are the top infrastructure needs in Johnson City, and how would you address them? And we'll start with Mr. Williams.
Thank you very much. The top infrastructure needs, actually, I think the city is in a pretty good position in many respects. We have adequate clean water. Certainly we want to preserve that, but our sources are good and our delivery system is good. A lot of funds have been invested in our wastewater treatment plants. There's plenty of room for growth. The Watauga facility will soon have another either a 42 or 48-inch pipe to it. So I think wastewater will be well handled, and all those things provide the city room for growth. I've been going door to door every afternoon for a month. The things that I hear complaints about have to do primarily probably with roads that may have been put a little bit on the back burner while we pursued some of these other activities that we need to. Certainly the addition of broadband through Bright Ridge, particularly to any lower socioeconomic groups, is very important. I'd like to see that continued on a long-term basis. But I think the roads and broadband will, particularly the roads, will consume a lot of funds over the next several years. Thank you.
Ms. Harley McClaskey?
Well, I know we have a bond issue about to be likely approved that will take care of a lot of things related to school classroom expansion, and I know we have some infrastructure going into place in downtown Johnson City. And I know we have some additional fire trucks being purchased, but I also know that this is Fire Safety Month, and that there are high needs in our fire department for equipment and trucks that have grown older and older, and yes, we're replacing some, but more is needed. But at the same time, I also know that we have clean water, but we have pipes that are celebrating almost century birthdays coming up. We have some parts of the city where pipes are nearing their 100th birthday. I know that the one that runs along the main road near myself was laid in 1932 and has had 3 major leaks in the last 3 years that cut across my property just in and of itself. We have some water pipe problems that need to be addressed, and who would want to know that the fire department was on the way and dependent on that water line? Equipment and water and fire safety, it's a pretty big deal.
Mr. Fowler?
I think the top infrastructure needs in Johnson City still go schools, roads, and water sewer. We have 3 schools that we are just now starting to renovate, build onto, because we have a bunch of elementary kids that we need space for. We really need to rebuild Town Acre School. It's the oldest of our elementary schools, and we were hoping to get funding for that from the county. So one of the ways we could get that money is to get as much of our tax money from the county that the city residents pay for schools back from the county. We also need to continue to work on our roads and our water and sewer. We've got a great plan for doing that in the city. We've been following the roads and making sure that we're building roads as much as possible before things happen instead of trying to catch up like many other cities. We've been replacing water towers. We've got great water storage systems now with lots of good new pipes that we're putting in. We do need to replace some, and they're on a list to be replaced. There's bond money that the federal government, the state government has that we apply for to get grants for those kind of things too. We will continue to do that, and I think we're ahead of schedule on most of the things that we're doing, so we need to keep that up.
Mr. Clark?
So it's a broken record, but roads is definitely one of the bigger things that you always hear when you talk to the residents of this city, especially when you go to the areas that a lot of people don't realize are in the city. I haven't been canvassing this year because of COVID. I don't want to be a spreader, and I don't want to catch COVID. But 2 years ago when I was running, I walked through so many communities where if it wasn't for the fact that I drive a pickup truck, I'd be afraid to drive down that road in my vehicle. I at least have suspension good enough for that. And so there are still plenty of communities that need these roads fixed to help revitalize them and to make them feel more comfortable, more at home, and less like the environment is out to get them. The other big infrastructure issue that I see is one that's more with a future towards eye. Making certain that our the community is overhauled to be more environmentally friendly to help combat climate change, at least in the way that we can do here. To bring buildings into a green code so that they're more efficient in the way that they use electricity and use their heating and cooling. To try and help water drainage by putting gardens on top of roofs. Those two things are my big one.
Thank you. Mr. Murphy?
Yes. There are a lot of upgrades we need with schools, water, sewer pipes, roads. We do need upgrades. That's part of a community. You're going to need to upgrade things. I also know that we do need a better infrastructure when it comes to internet. We need fiber optic. So the question is, how are we going to pay for all this stuff? I got to ask for that. Let's recruit remote workers. The money's not going to grow on trees. It's not going to fall out the sky. So if we have better internet infrastructures, we can recruit remote workers, people who work from home. We see that movement more now than ever. Matter of fact, my neighbor just moved from Orlando, one of my favorite places in the world, Disney. He was able to move here because he felt that we had some accommodations, but he cannot invite his coworkers until we have better accommodations. But if we can recruit more remote workers, we can increase our tax base, and we can pay for these roads, these sewers, these schools, and all this other stuff we need. Thank you.
Mr. Wise?
I think the answer is partially going to be answered in reverse. How do you do it? It's you have a plan. And every year, the city commission reviews with staff the CIP, the capital investment plan, that forecasts out years, if not decades, of future capital needs of the city. And that document serves as a guide for identifying how to prioritize and plan for those dollars. So as one answer alluded to, fire trucks, we buy a pumper or a ladder truck just about every year, and that's in the plan. The big infrastructure need that's on the horizon is schools. As we move to a 2 middle school model, we need capacity at Indian Trail and Liberty Bell, which we're working to address in the Liberty Bell gym and a project at Indian Trail, but then also at the elementary schools. The other that I would mention is an investment on the West Walnut Street corridor. There are opportunities there to put dollars to use that will ultimately have a double impact because they create opportunity for private investment and increased performance of the businesses that are there. Instead of an empty warehouse, maybe it's a thriving business that's paying more tax or generating more sales tax. So how do you do it? You have a plan, and then you grow your economy so you have more resources available when it's time to execute.
Ms. Norwood?
I would actually have to agree with Mr. Wise. We definitely have to have a plan, and the CIP is a great guideline that really does map out, like, where's our money going to go, what kind of things are going to be coming up next. It's kind of preventative, right? Like, you don't say, I'm going to go to the doctor, I'm going to go to the dentist when my teeth are falling out. Like, you go to the dentist every 6 months, you make your appointment, and you know that's something that you're going to have to do. So there are things in our city that we regularly have to upkeep, such as the pipes and different amenities that we need to, continue to invest in to make sure that our city is running as effectively and efficiently as possible. One thing that hasn't really been mentioned that I would like to touch on is, which I think you might have said it as well, Mr. Wise, the ability for, transforming abandoned lots and, maybe tearing down some houses or areas that, like, obviously are not livable, and making those types of places into either low-income housing or, income-based housing, something that will actually help the people that are struggling. Because we know that a lot of people really are one medical emergency away from poverty. Or there are a lot of people that are actually in poverty right now, and people need somewhere to sleep at night, somewhere they can feel safe. And I think that there is a lot of room for opportunity to invest in our community and invest in our citizens.
Mr. Beagle?
I think that there's a lot of communities in our area that have been neglected. we can build up these areas, providing more people with better places to live, creating more economic opportunities in those areas through economic development programs and bringing in more businesses in those areas. Building up roads, of course, in those areas, fixing water lines that need to be fixed. And also, as everyone else has mentioned, continuing to build on education or educational institutions and giving students with a quality building to go to school with, providing them with the technology that they need. And, you know, creating more bike lanes on these roads so we can create more green initiatives in our area for people to ride bikes. And I think that's the top priorities here.
Question number 4. How should Johnson City address diversity needs and concerns? We'll start with Ms. Harley McClaskey.
A little bit of a tangle here. Johnson City needs to have an intentional plan to work on inclusion and diversity in our community. We have boards and leaders appointed for various reasons within government or on commissions or boards that appear to be the same small groups of people year to year, without an actual intentional plan, without monitoring how we go about recruiting folks to be on boards, without intentionally going out to different communities and encouraging and inviting and welcoming different members of our community to serve, we will not be able to change this situation. It's hard to look at the board memberships and say, oh, this includes this group of our community and this includes that group in our community, but I could count males and females, and I can tell you that females make 32% of the appointed boards and commission memberships, and that includes those who were required by virtue of employment in the city and or membership on the city commission. We have a lot of work to do.
Mr. Fowler?
I think some of the ways we can address that, we just talked about, and that is opening up our boards and committees to everyone, and that we've been trying to do. We've opened up a website that lists all of those, and everyone is welcome to apply for that. We've invited diverse people to our sesquicentennial board when we had it, so we would get input from everyone for that. There are ways of doing it and inviting people and talking about it, and I think we can always do a better job at including everyone, but we've tried to be inclusive in the things that we've done as far as invitations to boards and committees and other activities in the city of Johnson City with parades and everything else that we've opened up to everyone. There's a way to do it, and if you apply for it, we okayed it. I haven't had anything that's been turned down that's like that. So we can continue to get better, but I think we're doing okay. We can do better.
Mr. Clark?
Yeah, so in order to ensure that diversity needs are met and these concerns are met, you have to first know what those needs and concerns are, and that requires having people from minority groups come and be leaders, and also just be in government in general. One of the things I'd like to do, there's a hiring method that I've researched where the first read-through of the application forms leaves off age, race, and name. It's basically just qualifications. That's it. And because so many people get thrown to the other pile just through the subconscious racism that people have, that they're grown up with, and they throw away the name that looks too black, or a form for someone who's too young to know what to do. As someone who is under 30, I myself have experienced that ageism, especially when it comes to sitting up here and talking about my vision for the future. So we need to ensure that we bring these minority communities in and we take them seriously and we do what they ask of us as leaders.
Mr. Murphy?
Some of the needs and concerns we don't have diversity in leadership. We're not doing a good job with that. We have no diverse representation at the commission. We have little diverse representation at the school board. We have no diverse representation in the police department and fire department. We can do a lot. We can do a better job, Johnson City. But I believe this is a diverse community. I've met people all over the world here in our community, but we need better representation. How do we do that? We need to educate our community members that, hey, Aaron T. Murphy's a good guy. You know, he serves the community, or whomever, or whoever that person may be. We need to open our mind and hearts to people that may not look like you or didn't come from the world you came from. And so we need to do more educational efforts to the residents of our community to say, hey, we need diverse representation. We can do that. We can get leaders of diverse communities to step up by going to the schools. Let's start early. Let's talk to the classrooms. Let's talk to some of our minority community youth and children about being police officers, firefighters, or what have you. It starts at a young age, but it also starts with our community members and being open-minded and open-hearted to put people in position that can represent all people. Thank you.
Mr. Wise?
I would echo Mr. Murphy and say I think part of this just begins by listening and being open to those comments and perspectives that may be new to us specifically. I will say that I think we've looked at our appointments to boards and commissions recognizing the challenge that Ms. McClaskey referenced, that we were sort of recycling many of the same people. And why? Because it was many of the same people who applied every time it came time to appoint people to boards and commissions. And so we moved away from a sort of popcorn model of appointments where every meeting we might have one or two to twice a year, encouraging people to apply, not to apply for one commission or committee where there may not even be an effective vacancy, but rather apply so we could plug people in where the opportunity was greatest. And I'm very proud of the group of people that we've appointed over the last couple of years, and I believe it reflects the diversity of our community. Is it perfect? No. Is it closer? Absolutely. And I'll take closer over inaction any day of the week.
Ms. Norwood?
So for me, diversity and inclusion in Johnson City looks like a young Black woman from this area running for office. Like, that's where it starts. You know, you have to have people that are minorities or have different experiences and different backgrounds and levels of education. So like, we're all college educated here at this table. And so the issues that we see in education may have oversight, whereas somebody that only has a high school diploma or maybe even less education than that can tell us what we're overlooking, issues that they see in our community that we would never even know because that's not our experience, right? So I think in order to address the lack of diversity in public office and elected positions is to encourage more young people and more minority groups to run for these kind of things, like, then make it easier for them to run. Like, this has basically been my full-time job for the past few months, and you know, I don't know how I'm gonna make all this work. I'm just doing it day by day, but not everybody has, you know, somebody that's supporting them at home and saying, hey, I got your back, just go do it, go be the change. And so I think we need to make these types of meetings and boards more accessible to the working class people, and yeah, just make it more relatable and transparent, easier for people to get involved.
Mr. Beagle?
I think that we need more representation that actually resembles our different communities. We have a variety of minority communities here, and all too often we have a specific demographic that's leading us. So getting more people in power who will be the voice of different communities, who will step up and help fight for these people we need more of this. We need more young people. We need more LGBTQ plus members. We need more Black people to step up and to actually fight for change. And the first step to actually addressing these needs is to listen and having leaders who will listen to these disparities that we all face, and we're actively working to mend those disparities. Thank you.
Mr. Williams?
Yes, ma'am, thank you. I think it's really a tough question. I think the leadership has tried, but it's very difficult in this community as it's been difficult in many communities. I think the most important thing to think about is that we have to respect each other. We have to educate the public and all different groups that their input is desired. I would love to have more minorities on various boards or commission or planning committees, but I'd also like to have more minorities in the city police and the fire department. And we need to treat all of those organizations with respect so that young people that are growing up in communities can see those jobs as good, solid, honest, and respectable jobs, and that those individuals are treated with respect. And as we move young people through those positions, more and more people are going to move up into leadership positions. But clearly, it's education, showing a genuine interest in being diverse, and treating each other with respect that is probably not as good as it needs to be, and it's a constant effort to work on. Thank you.
Question number 5. Is your candidacy limited to anything that could be perceived as a conflict of interest? And if so, how will you make sure it doesn't affect your decisions on the commission? We'll start this with Mr. Fowler.
I don't believe I have any conflict of interest for this job, for being a commissioner, and I've always been open to everyone. I've been accessible to the community during the 4 years. I've been approached by more people than you can imagine about every little thing that's wrong. So I don't believe I have a conflict. Thank you.
Mr. Clark?
So, as a 27-year-old who doesn't run his own business, I have no conflict of interest. Due to an inheritance from my father, I was able to pay off my truck. I have no loans against me. Was also able to buy a nice house inside the city, just down from Princeton Arts Center. But I also want to point out that if you are a business leader in this city, then there is a bit of conflict of interest when you're making policy that affects businesses in the city. And that's not to say that you can't serve effectively in that role, but you do. You have a conflict of interest because you're setting your own taxes. And, you know, as residents of the city, we all have the conflict of interest that we own property here and we set the property taxes as well. So there's more than just like the I'm beholden to someone conflict. There is the I have to pay bills in this city conflict. And I want to be open about that. And I just want to make it clear that since I am not beholden to a business, I will be beholden to all businesses' employees and making certain that they will get the policies that they need and ask for through the commission.
Mr. Murphy?
Yes, I have no, I don't have anything that limits me. I don't have any conflict of interest. I'm a leader in this community. I've served this community 7 years, serving a homeless community. I'm with people who are in great need, and I'm also with people who have resources. I'm connected. And so that's what shapes the decisions I have, are people from all communities, sub-communities within our total community. I'm here for the people of Johnson City to represent every person who looks differently, thinks differently, behaves differently, that we come together and be united for a common cause and a common purpose. And so that's why I'm here. I have no hidden agenda. I want to avail myself and my leadership experience and my expertise, and that's what I have to offer, and I want to help bring our community together. Thank you.
Mr. Wise?
Thank you. I would clarify, I think none of us on this platform are here as candidates or serve as commissioners out of self-interest, self-dealing, the interests of our rich friends or something along those lines. In fact, I find that notion sort of silly, honestly. When you are serving on the commission, you are volunteering thousands of hours. And I have personally found that the way to approach decisions with respect to the conflict is you're not answering the question of, well, I'm going to raise my taxes. How shall I make this decision based on how does it affect me? We're functioning as fiduciaries of the city. We have a fiduciary duty to put on our city commission hat and evaluate decisions based on its implications for the city as a whole, not for us individually. And so, things will come up, and you don't have to be a business owner to have a conflict. Your employer might have something before the commission, and you would have a conflict. A family member might have something before the commission, and you would have a conflict. And the answer there is to disclose, and if appropriate, abstain. And that's been my approach. Thank you.
Ms. Norwood?
Yeah, I definitely don't feel like I have any conflicts of interest. Like, what you see is what you get. If you have a question, I'm gonna answer it like to the best of my ability and very honestly, maybe sometimes a little too honestly. So I don't necessarily see any conflicts of interest with my candidacy, or, if I get this position as city commissioner, I don't think I'll have any conflicts of interest. But, like Mr. Wise said, like if for whatever reason there is something that comes up and there becomes a conflict or it doesn't feel quite right, and like maybe I shouldn't put my input in on that, then I will say, hey, like I don't really feel comfortable with this because of X, Y, and Z, and there's 4 other members of this board that can help make the decision on how to move forward. So yeah, I think honesty with yourself about whether or not there would be a conflict is the first and foremost of importance. But then also understanding that like you do have a duty to your constituents. Like these people are counting on you to make decisions on their best behalf. And I'm definitely a person for the people. Like that's why I'm doing this. It's not for me. It's actually been pretty stressful to do this. So it's for the people that live in Johnson City and even the surrounding areas of the Tri-Cities. So yeah.
Mr. Beagle?
Well, as everyone else has already mentioned, I don't have any conflicts of interest, and I plan on continuing my work with full transparency. Thank you.
Mr. Williams?
Yeah, I echo Mr. Wise. I believe the question is a little bit silly. Perhaps 100 years ago when the city's developing and land is being parceled out, there may have been the opportunity for conflicts of interest, but anybody that sits on this commission, and I think everybody at these tables up here, is trying to do the right thing and is absolutely interested in the best interests of the community. A conflict of interest that requires you to spend many hours every week reading multiple documents and attending openings. This is hard work. This is a serious job for serious people. And I don't believe anybody on these tables up here would personally benefit from attending the city commission or participating on its behalf. So I don't believe that that would occur.
Ms. Harlan McClaskey?
Thanks, and I believe the same, although I will say, 35 years at ETSU, I assume that if there is some kind of a situation between the campus and the city, I would ask if I needed to step out or continue to be part of the conversation. But other than that, I'm not some big landowner, other than the house that I live in. And in terms of contributions to my campaign, they've all been from individuals and, nothing from any kind of organized PAC or anything that would make me beholden to anybody.
Question number 6. What are your ideas for encouraging our young citizens to stay and attract new citizens, families to live and work in Johnson City? And we'll start with Mr. Clark.
Hey, at least you didn't start with one of the older people here today. No. So I decided to stay. I've had many opportunities over the last almost 10 years now since I graduated high school to leave this area. I didn't. Partially because I couldn't afford it, but even when I could, I didn't because I fell in love with this community and with this environment. But I also didn't have very many job opportunities. And that is one of the biggest things that is keeping our young people from staying, is that there is a lack of job opportunities for them, especially as they come out of ETSU and they graduate. One of the things that I want to do is to implement a small business program where we help new graduates build up businesses here in their community and encourage them to stay here and stay active here in Johnson City, as well as giving people opportunities to intern with the government here while they're in their teenage years and throughout college, giving them a chance to fall in love with this community at every level.
Mr. Murphy?
I believe that Johnson City is a great place. It's a place where you will see and meet people from all walks of life. But not a lot of young people stay long because of the lack of job opportunities. We need more job opportunities where people can work one job and make a living, and not 2 or 3 jobs. What I do for a living is help people make ends meet. At Good Samaritan, we pay rent, utilities, we pass out food boxes. A good number of people we serve are working class families because they have a hard time making ends meet. Not too often will you have a lot of opportunities with jobs that will pay you well and also give you benefits. And that's a problem. I had a friend of mine who just moved to Minnesota a couple weeks ago, getting paid a third of what he was getting here locally, plus awesome benefits. So we have to provide more opportunities for our younger citizens and families to stay, to live, and be a part of our community. Thank you.
Mr. Wise?
Aaron, you'll need to ask your friend how he feels about that decision in February, because it'll be like minus 30 there. So you can call him again and see if he wants to come back.
May I respond to Joe?
I guess my answer to that would be twofold. This current commission has had focus groups and meetings with young people, college age and in their 20s, with this very question in mind. Like, why are you here? Why might you not be here in 5 years? Why are your friends not here? Why might they come back? And the answers they had were about lifestyle. They liked living here. They liked being close to work. They didn't have 45-minute and hour-long commutes. But then the downside was opportunities. Job opportunities, and then once you had a job, opportunities for upward mobility. And so I think the answer ends up being kind of multifaceted. The first thing is to recognize the resources we have, and we're deploying broadband internet across the entirety of the community with Bright Ridge, which is something this commission voted to make happen, 10 gig service up and down. But we can also work to create community in both things like our young professionals groups, but also an entrepreneurial ecosystem. One of the interesting things is to go to Chattanooga and hear how they have done things to create little clusters of entrepreneurs who feed off one another and encourage one another. And that's, I think, part of this answer as well.
Ms. Norwood?
So as a young person, I have young friends. I have some old friends too. But this is actually a question I've been asking my younger friends is like, we're trying to figure out what are we going to do on a Saturday night that doesn't look like going to the bar, the club, or going to a restaurant. Like, what else is there for us to do that's like fun and engaging? And to be honest with you, like I've been asking for weeks and they really just say, I don't know. Like, they really don't know what they would want to have here. And it's okay to not know. But I think one thing that for me as a young person, I would like to see are more like leadership development programs, and like, you know, maybe we can build off some of the existing ones that we do have. I know the Langston Center tries to provide like educational and like development type programs. So I think, you know, if we get young people excited and continue that like love for learning outside of a classroom environment, I think that would be one way to build relationships with other young folks and, you know, some of the older leaders in the community. And I think we should also, everybody else has said here, you know, job opportunities that pay well, so people don't feel like they have to go to a bigger city or somewhere else outside of this area to, you know, actually just live and survive. So, yeah.
Mr. Beagle?
I think the primary issue here is economic inequities that we face. Creating more job opportunities, as everyone has mentioned, creating better wages for our existing workers here, and those new opportunities, bringing in more people, building up our small businesses, and providing more resources for young people to actually build their small businesses. I know a lot of young people out of college face a lot of issues with loans and repaying that. And so because of that, they're not able to start small businesses or businesses that they want to start. And helping them with that and providing them with resources so they can actually start that business and actually get their loans repaid. I think that's how we conquer that.
Mr. Williams?
Yes, ma'am, thank you. I think first we have to protect the small businesses that are struggling following the pandemic. There's many small businesses that may permanently close, and I hate to lose those jobs. So anything that the government can do, and sometimes it's the government encouraging the private market to help small businesses to keep those jobs. The jobs that we do have, we need to slowly transform many of those jobs into better paying jobs. We need to recruit entrepreneurs and families that have discovered that they can work remotely, and this issue has come up before. But we have a lovely city. This is a great place to live, and we need to market ourselves. It's a great community. We're surrounded by mountains and lakes and streams and mountain bike trails and the Tweetsie Trail. We have a lot to offer, and we need to market ourselves aggressively to get people who are struggling in other cities to bring their jobs, their employees this way. And it's a lovely environment, and we need to market it heavily. Thank you.
Ms. Harley McClaskey?
Thank you. Well, having worked for 35 years at ETSU, I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of college students. For them, it's salaries. We've heard this before. I will give you an example. So a position that's in a healthcare organization that requires skills from a 2-year degree pays $9.50 an hour. If you want me to do the math, that's $19,000 a year. Who can live on that? No one. To be able to live in a community that embraces diversity, our young people thrive in that atmosphere. They want that atmosphere, and they want to feel welcomed and safe in that atmosphere. We have to help this community transition to embracing diversity. I think we could create we've done focus groups, great. So let's create a partnership. Can we engage the chamber and the university and Northeast State in a conversation and a series of actions to actually do some things to retain the wonderful talent that comes out of those institutions? Yes, they're saddled with loans. They're also saddled with the situation of, I want to be an entrepreneur, but how in the world do I get health care, at least in this state? We have a lot of issues to try to help them resolve, but I think with a partnership, we can help work on that.
Mr. Fowler?
A lot of this attracting new families and keeping our young citizens here, I talked about in my goals for the city. A lot of them have been mentioned here. The 10 gig broadband for everyone to have fast internet, growth in businesses, growth in the entrepreneurial system here. And we've got groups that are trying to help do that and incubate new young people's ideas into companies here. We've been talking with the local universities and colleges here about workforce training and developing workers that can work at companies that want to come here, but they haven't come here in the past because we didn't have the workforce that they needed here. So we need to work with our schools to do workforce development, make sure we're training people for jobs that could come here that are good paying jobs. Our education system, the better we make our schools is more attractive for people from outside. Places like the Pinnacle that are up in Bristol, we're thinking about trying to develop that here in Johnson City. That's another attractive thing to keep young people here in Johnson City. We want new companies there and not just to move things from the mall out there. So those are ways to attract people and to keep some of our young people from going other places where there are things to do.
Question number 7 and our final question. What more should Johnson City do in the way of police reforms? We will start with Mr. Murphy.
Thank you. I believe that Johnson City should offer care and counseling to all our officers. If you could only imagine what a police officer goes through. I performed my brother-in-law's wedding this past weekend, and one of his groomsmen was a former police officer here in Johnson City. And I asked him why he left the police force. It was due to trauma. He dealt with a lot of things. Some would say, well, he's white, he's racist. Well, my father-in-law was like a second father to him. He grew up with a secondary black family. But he's dealing with trauma. He needs some attention. We need de-escalation training for our officers. So when they're dealing with tough situations, they know how to talk people down and bring peace and not be too quick to react. And so I do applaud our police officers here, but I believe we also need to educate them and provide them care and counseling when needed. Thank you.
Mr. Wise?
First, to clarify, my remarks are specific to the Johnson City Police Department, but I would want to clarify as we look at police reforms that our police in Johnson City enjoy my support 100%. And they do so not just because that's a throwaway line, but because they've earned it. And they've earned it by holding themselves to a higher standard, and specifically international accreditation. Now, part of international accreditation is a process of continual improvement, which is the humility to recognize that there is always something more that you can be doing to improve things. And to that end, I would point to former Chief Soroy and Bill Coleman as an example of that. Years ago, they came together to create a community roundtable that sought to create dialogue across different communities in Johnson City, and I think that proved to be a very helpful source of information. I mean, ultimately, the police reforms need to come about from professionals in law enforcement and the community in general. It's not going to come from vague slogans that don't offer clarity of solution, but it's going to come from within Johnson City, both its law enforcement community and the citizens as a whole.
Ms. Norwood?
So as an activist and community organizer, my experience in activism started in Johnson City with the Black Lives Matter movement at large. And that goes to say that I have interacted with quite a lot of police officers in various forms of escalation. So whether that be just like police officer not really in uniform, having a conversation, to like full riot gear in my face, like trying to, push me off of the sidewalk kind of thing, right? And so on all of those aspects, I've experienced the Johnson City Police Force on different levels. And one of the things that I feel like we have to do in order to build better relationships between the police officers and the city of Johnson City would be to really take the dialogue that has happened this summer and kind of put that more into action, because there has been a lot of dialogue through just unofficial meetings and official like community roundtables, some of which I have actually attended myself. And then I also, to Aaron Murphy's point, believe that we do need more de-escalation training and more training on things like ethics and stuff like that, just from the basis whenever they're at Walter State in their training programs. And lastly, the split shifts that they perform where you're 12 hours like day shift, 12 hours night shift, that has got to go. I don't know how we're gonna address that like realistically, but that's not healthy for anybody in any profession, like police officer, nurse, teacher, it doesn't matter. Like, that's not good for the human body.
Mr. Beagle?
I think as others have touched on, we need, more training with de-escalation. That comes with helping the police force and providing them with increased funding so that way they can have an increased training program to work with de-escalation. My younger brother, for example, he fights mental illnesses, and he has episodes here and there. We had to call the police for him to help him, and they showed up and they didn't know how to handle the situation and made it worse. We need more police officers that have the ability to work with people with mental illnesses and with other communities, minority communities, and actually showing awareness. We need to increase funding for our police force to provide them with the technology they need to be held accountable for their own actions. And I think that's how we go about these reforms.
Mr. Williams?
Yes, ma'am, thank you. I think that Johnson City is blessed to have the police department that it has. The police have been very well led, and I believe are far ahead of the curve on community policing. I'm a huge supporter of the police. I have a little sister that's a retired motorcycle police officer, so I've heard the stories and the difficulties. Johnson City is currently short on police, and the reason that I believe that we're short is that the police are underpaid and they're under-respected. And I think that everyone in the community needs to be taught from childhood that the police are there to serve you and to protect you. And I'm probably 2 or 3 times older than the average police officer that may pull me over, perhaps for speeding. For me, it's yes, sir, and no, sir. And so I have great respect for the police. The police would love to have members of various minority communities join the police, but the police have to be seen as a respected entity in the community before we can get minorities to join. So we need more police. They're always ready to accept more training. They need to be better paid and better respected. But I think our police are way ahead of the curve and doing a good job. Thank you.
Ms. Harley McClaskey?
Thank you. Well, I want to reiterate the fact that I believe that most of our emergency responders are underpaid, and we don't want to become the training ground for other departments, police or fire or others. Accreditation for our police department is important, necessary, but not enough. And things that are part of that accreditation ought to be visible to the community. I think a lot of us don't have a real clear picture of what accreditation means. Or if we have a citizen oversight board, are there summaries of some of those meetings? Are they posted? I got on there in May to look at some of that, and the materials and things on there were 2 years old. So we need to do a better job of informing the public about what the police department is doing. Yes, the training at the academy is not near enough. They certainly need more than that, whether it's de-escalation or around domestic violence. We have situations where our police officers need more skills and more tools. Citizen boards to have an understanding and provide input would be very, very helpful and important. And I also believe that we should invest in body cams.
Mr. Fowler?
I too will say that I am 100% behind our police department. They have a really hard job. If you've never been on a ride-along with them to see what they deal with, I would encourage everybody to do a ride-along to just see what their job is like for how long they do that. We're down 16 officers right now because we can't fill those jobs. We have 6 going through the academy. By the time those 6 finish, we will probably be down more than 16, so we'll still be down a lot of officers by the time they get done. It's not just pay, it's everything else that goes along with being an officer that hurts us in recruitment. We've talked about coming down in some of the restrictions like tattoos and things. So some military people that would love to be a police officer have not been able to qualify because of tattoos, and that's not an unusual thing for military. So if we can decrease some of that, we can probably recruit better. Training. They get a ton of training, but you can always do better. They've had de-escalation training. Most of them do a great job with it. I can't say there's not a bad apple in every group, and if we find that, we ought to take care of that. But we need to continue the dialogue that they're having with the community and keep that open so everybody relates to the police and becomes more respectful of the police, and they're more respectful of the citizens.
Mr. Clark?
Yeah, so I think one of the key things that we could do to help reform the police to be better servants to our community is to understand that policing in so many ways in America is the result of us not creating more emergency departments, right? We have fire, they only deal with fire and medical emergencies. We have EMTs, they only deal with medical emergencies. For everything else, you call the police department. That's not fair to these men and women who serve. If it's a social dispute, if it's a domestic disturbance that is doesn't have the threat of serious violence, we need emergency social workers for that instead of sending a fresh out of the academy recruit with a gun. We need to make certain that we train in de-escalation and we use that first. We need to make certain that the first weapon pulled is not the sidearm, it is the taser that every single officer has on their belt. We need to increase accountability by having community boards that oversee the police with the power to truly investigate whenever things go on. And I know that we are a very safe community, but ensuring that our police are accountable to the community will only increase the safety of us.
Thank you. We will now go for our closing comments, and we will start with Mr. Murphy. You have 1 minute each.
Thank you to Johnson City Press, Women League of Voters, and ETSU for hosting this event. I believe that my experience speaks for itself. In April, I led this community to a place of unity, a call to action, a call to prayer. I know corporate America and also know the nonprofit world here in our city. I have experience for the best of both worlds. I represent a community of every tribe, tongue, and nation. I believe that revival is going to sweep the city like never before. And I'm praying for that. I'm praying that we all come together, regardless of you're Republican, Democrat. We have to live together at the end of the day. And so in the midst of the political, racial, social, economic tension, we are Johnson City. We have to work together. We have to live together. And I believe I'm called to lead efforts in unity. And so I'm asking for your support. I'm asking for your vote. Please do call me, 423-791-8552, and I'll answer any questions you have. Thank you.
Mr. Clark?
So many of my fellow candidates up here will ask you to vote for them because of the corporate boards that they have sat on are their own personal successes in business. But when you head to the ballot box this November, I'm only asking one thing. If you find yourself doing okay during these hard times, put yourself in the shoes of those facing eviction, those who have lost their job and don't have the money to feed their children, or those who are sleeping on the streets because our society has left them behind and forgotten about them. Put yourself in their shoes and vote as if you were facing those challenges yourself. If you and your family are struggling, I hope that I have shown you that I will work tirelessly for you and that I will not forget about you when serving on the commission. My main goal as your city commissioner will be to improve the quality of life for all of our city's residents by focusing on those who need the most help first, because that's what having compassion for the people in your community means. I am a working class candidate running for the Johnson City Commission, and my name is Jeff Clark, and I'm asking for your vote this November to bring compassion to the commission. Visit jc4jc.com to find out more.
Mr. Fowler?
I would appreciate your vote coming up in this election. Early voting starts tomorrow. I bring a lifetime of experience as a physician, as a Christian, as a businessman, business leader, someone who's helped start businesses, who's been a volunteer in this community for years, for 27 years. I represent all of the citizens of Johnson City. I've been a physician caring for most of the people in Johnson City I have taken care of over the last 27 years that have come through our school systems that have been injured as athletes. So I've been involved. I'm concerned about our community. I would like it to thrive, and that is my goal for Johnson City, is to thrive, and I would appreciate your vote.
Ms. Harley-McClaskey?
Serving you means a commitment to revisiting neighborhoods and looking at needs, being present at community meetings, and realizing that the beauty of Johnson City lies not just in the mountains that surround us, but it's with the citizens that live within and work, live, and play here. My job as city commissioner is to serve you, to listen to you, to engage with you in creating the vision and the goals for this community. I want to empower you to be an active participant in government, communicate with you to let you know what we're doing, and keep you in the loop, and to help supervise the processes that make this happen. I ask for your vote. I'm Debbie Harley-McClaskey.
Mr. Williams?
Yes, ma'am, thank you. As a physician serving the community for 33 years, serving on the city commission is really another opportunity to serve. That's what physicians do. I believe that we have a wonderful community. We have first-class universities at ETSU and Milligan. We have world-class hospitals for both the general public and the veteran system. I believe we need to strongly support education. I think we have a great school system that needs further support, both in teachers' salaries and in the physical structures that they teach in. I'm a big supporter of the police, firemen, and first responders. I think they all have very difficult jobs, and they need to be respected and paid well. I would like to keep Johnson City on the right track. I think we have a lot to offer and more to come, and I would appreciate your support. Thank you very much.
Mr. Beagle?
I'd first like to say thank you to ETSU and Johnson City Press and the League of Women Voters for allowing us to expand on these important topics. And I'd like to focus this on the fact that the complacency of our elected officials has contributed to the stagnation of growth and prosperity in our region and in our country. So we need to elect more officials and leaders who will actually stand for change and progress and stand with our people instead of against them. So I think the most important thing here is for you to go out and vote, make sure you have a plan, and go out there and make your voice heard. And again, my name is Kyle Beagle. Thank you.
Ms. Norwood?
My name's Alana Norwood, and in this past hour, you guys have learned more about me, and if you want to know more about where I stand on certain issues, or you just want to have a conversation, then feel free to reach out. My information's on Facebook. It's been pretty popular and easy to navigate, so I've just stuck with that. It's Alana Norwood for Johnson City Commission 2020. I try to respond to messages as quickly as possible, and I've engaged various people in different conversations. I do want to thank everybody here that made this possible tonight. I always enjoy, hearing what everybody else has to say and learning from them, because I'm an academic at heart, so learning is my thing. Yeah, like Kyle said, go vote. Early voting starts tomorrow and lasts until the 27th, if I'm not mistaken, 29th, okay? So make sure you have a plan. If you need a ride, I'll take you. I've turned in countless voter registration forms. Like, I am dedicated to turning out the vote. Tennessee is not a red state, as it's believed. It is a non-voting state. So make sure you use your voice and go out and vote. I don't care who it's for, just go vote.
Mr. Wise?
Thank you. I want to thank the hosts of today's forum. What I've learned in 6 years in elected office is that it's a balancing act. We've got different competing requests and expectations, and we have only the resources that we have. I think the question that you as voters really want to be asking is, who can effectively govern an organization with roughly 1,000 full-time positions and $250 million with a B annual budget? And I think my history has shown a level of pragmatism and independence that should be reassuring to voters that I am there to make what I believe to be sound decisions on your behalf. And if you'd like to know more, you can find my website at joewise.org, and I'm asking for your vote.
Thank you to candidates for being willing to run for office. It's commendable that you choose to volunteer to serve your town, your county, your state, and your country. The League of Women Voters want to thank you for your participation tonight, and I'd like to bring forward Sam Watson with the Johnson City Press, our partner in this forum.
Good evening. In all the years that we've been hosting forums, I don't think I've ever been as pleased as I was tonight. This group is, Johnson City's lucky to have you, in all honesty. This is a fine field of candidates, and I think that whatever the outcome is, Johnson City is going to be well served by the people that were here tonight. And so I appreciate each and every one of you participating in this. And we will hope to be engaged with you very soon. So thank you.
So join with me in thanking each other. With that, the forum is ended. Thank you.